Possessing one of the world's most extraordinary landscapes, where an arid coastal desert, the towering Andes Mountains, and the Amazon rainforest all coexist within a single territory, Peru has turned what once seemed like its greatest limitations into rare agricultural advantages. Through a series of unique adaptive farming methods, the country has not only conquered these harsh terrains, but has also driven the entire industry to generate over $20 billion in value each year. So what has allowed Peru, in just over a decade, to transform from a barely noticeable name on the world agricultural map into a competitor capable of rivaling powerhouses like the United States, China, and Brazil? In this video, join Agriculture Insight as we explore the remarkable rise of Peruvian agriculture, from the fields along the desert coast to the valleys nestled in the Andes, to see how a nation full of contradictions can create one of the most impressive agricultural growth stories. An ancient crop cultivated by Andean peoples since around 5000 BCE, Peruvian quinoa has today grown into an export worth hundreds of millions of dollars, reaching more than 50 markets around the world. When it comes to Peru's most celebrated grain, quinoa is the first name that comes to mind. Yet despite looking and being processed like a grain, quinoa is botanically classified as a pseudo-cereal, a false grain. What makes quinoa truly remarkable is its extraordinary adaptability, thriving anywhere from near sea level to highland plateaus at altitudes of roughly 4,000 meters. In summer, as the stalks begin to change color, the leaves dry out, and the seed clusters reach the ripeness they need, the harvest season shifts into its busiest phase. Across much of the Andes, farmers still harvest largely by hand, using sickles or small hoes to cut each plant close to the base before gathering the stalks into bundles and laying them out in rows to dry naturally in the sun. Once the stems and flower clusters are dry enough, the quinoa is spread across the ground, and trucks or farm vehicles are driven over it to knock the seeds loose from the stalks. The resulting mixture is then passed through large sieves and winnowed in the wind, letting the stems, dried leaves, and lighter debris blow away, while the heavier quinoa seeds fall through to settle below. After this initial cleaning right in the field, the seeds are collected and transported to a processing plant for further, more thorough treatment. There, the more critical work begins with the outer layer of each individual seed. Even after most external impurities have been removed, the seeds still carry saponin, a bitter-tasting compound coating the surface that must be removed before the quinoa is fit for consumption. To do this, the seeds pass through a mechanical scouring system, where continuous friction gradually strips away the saponin layer while preserving the nutrient-rich kernel inside. Once the seed surface reaches the necessary level of cleanliness, the quinoa is drained and moved into a drying system to complete the process. Moisture levels are carefully controlled and brought down to a stable point, ensuring the seeds dry evenly and resist deterioration during storage. The result is quinoa that's not only clean and free of saponin's characteristic bitterness, but also stable enough to move on to size sorting, packaging, or further processing into other products. While most of the world has grown accustomed to industrialized potatoes standardized for mass production, Peru still preserves a living museum underground, thousands of native varieties found nowhere else in the world. It all began around 8,000 years ago, when communities in the Andes had to find ways to survive amid cold climates, nutrient-poor soil, and harsh frost seasons. Starting from wild potato species, they gradually selected and kept the hardiest plants for each different condition: colder, drier, higher altitude, or harder to cultivate. Over thousands of years, this process of selection formed a genetic reservoir of more than 4,000 edible potato varieties, most of them concentrated in the Andean region. It is precisely this enormous genetic foundation that has given rise to a world of papas nativas, unlike almost any industrial potato-growing region. Some tubers are long, curved, and knobby with many eyes, while others take on strangely distorted shapes. Their flesh ranges from white and yellow to red, purple, bluish-purple, and naturally blended patches of color. Each variety therefore carries almost its own fingerprint, and to preserve them, in many highland areas people still harvest largely by hand, using a hoe to gently dig around the base of the plant to avoid bruising and to make sure no prized tubers are missed. The potatoes are then gathered, given a preliminary cleaning, and sorted by variety, color, size, and quality, with the finest tubers kept aside for the next planting season. But what truly makes papas nativas valuable lies in more than just their distinctive appearance. Purple and red-fleshed varieties tend to be rich in anthocyanins, while yellow-fleshed varieties can be high in carotenoids, alongside vitamin C, potassium, fiber, and starch. Known as the Kingdom of Alpacas, Peru supplies nearly 90% of the world's alpaca output, with more than 4 million animals living on farms scattered across the Andes. Unlike many industrial livestock models that rely on barns and processed feed, alpacas grow up almost entirely on open pastureland. During the day, they roam freely in herds across the high mountain slopes, foraging for grass and water on their own. Herders mainly keep watch over the animals, adjust grazing areas, and only supplement feed when the dry season leaves pastures scarce. About once a year, when the fleece reaches the right length, shearing season officially begins. For many indigenous communities in the Andes, this is not simply a routine part of animal care, but the most important time of the year, when the fleece accumulated over many months becomes the herd's most valuable source of income. At this point, each alpaca is carefully restrained, sometimes with its eyes covered to reduce stress. Using specialized shears, the shearer runs long strokes along the animal's body, separating the fleece into large sections while trying to keep the fibers intact and even, minimizing breakage or contamination. Right after shearing, the fleece is collected and sorted by color, length, and quality, before being washed, carded, spun, and woven into high-value products such as shawls, coats, and premium fabrics. Notably, in Peru, artisans also transform alpaca fleece into premium handmade stuffed animals, with some pieces selling for as much as around $1,000. No bigger than a finger, yet capable of driving a breakthrough that has reshaped Peru's entire marine economy. The Anchoveta has truly written a story for the history books, bringing in billions of dollars each year and standing as the backbone of Peru's fishing industry, with an annual catch of more than 5 million tons. Thanks to a unique natural advantage, the cold Humboldt Current, which carries enormous nutrients up from the ocean depths, Peruvian waters have become one of the richest anchovy fishing grounds in the world. When the fishing season begins, vessels don't cast their nets at random. Instead, they continuously scan the sea surface with radar, sonar, and fish-finding equipment to pinpoint exactly where dense schools of anchoveta are gathered below. As soon as the signal is clear enough, the boat moves in quickly and casts a purse seine net around the entire school, then draws the bottom closed, corralling millions of fish into a tight space. Once the net is hauled up against the side of the vessel, a suction pump system carries the fish through pipes directly onto the deck, after which they are quickly moved into refrigerated holds to preserve quality before the boat returns to port and delivers the raw material to a processing plant. Unlike most seafood, which is sold fresh or processed directly into food, anchovies in Peru are mainly sent to factories to produce fish meal and fish oil. As soon as the catch is landed, the fish are given a preliminary cleaning and then fed into a steam cooking system at around 90 to 100 degrees Celsius. The cooked mass is then passed through a screw press, which separates it into two distinct streams. The thick, protein-rich solids are kept for fish meal, while the liquid portion, containing oil, water, and fine sediment, is sent onto a centrifuge system. Under strong centrifugal force, the components separate by density, allowing the oil to be drawn off, refined, and pumped into storage tanks. The resulting product is Anchoveta fish oil, rich in omega-3s, especially EPA and DHA, which is commonly used in aquaculture feed. Meanwhile, the protein-rich solids are blended with recovered solids, concentrated, and dried to the appropriate moisture level. Once the material is dry and stable, it is further ground fine, cooled, and bagged to form fish meal. This meal typically contains around 60 to 70% protein and is also rich in amino acids and minerals, making it widely used in feed for farmed fish, shrimp, poultry, and many other livestock. For centuries, rodents have been a source of human dread, associated with filth, disease, and destruction. Yet the guinea pig completely upends that stereotype. From a small, unassuming animal, it has grown into an economically valuable branch of livestock farming, with more than 25 million individuals raised across Peru. Unlike rats or field mice, guinea pigs don't grow up amid garbage or sewers. Thousands of years ago, the people of the Andes deliberately domesticated this animal, turning a small native creature of the Andean highlands into livestock deeply woven into the community's daily life and culture. What makes this model so appealing is its low feed cost. Rather than relying on industrial feed, guinea pigs can thrive on grass, surplus vegetables, pumpkin, watermelon, straw, corn stalks, and many other agricultural byproducts. Thanks to a digestive system adapted to fiber-rich plant matter, things that might otherwise be discarded after harvest can instead become a food source that sustains their growth, turning farm waste into value right on the household's own land. To keep the herd growing evenly, farmers typically separate the animals by age and purpose, while keeping the pens dry, well-ventilated, and clean to reduce the risk of disease. When combined with improved Kai breeds that grow faster, the time needed to reach market weight is significantly shortened, allowing farmers to turn over their herds more quickly and improve their income. Once they reach the right size, the guinea pigs are sent to local markets, supplied to traditional restaurants, or delivered to small processing facilities where they are turned into nutrient-rich dishes. When people think of Norway, many immediately recall the Viking rowing celebration that has taken the World Cup by storm. But few realize that the same seas once sailed by the Vikings in their quest to conquer the oceans have now become the birthplace of the world's largest salmon industry. From the waves that carried legendary voyages centuries ago, Norway has embarked on a new conquest through technology, building a modern salmon industry that produces more than 1.5 million tons of salmon annually and generates approximately $12 billion in export revenue. As one of the world's most widely consumed fish, salmon begins its life with remarkably slim chances of survival. In the wild, only about 1 in every 1,000 young salmon lives long enough to reach adulthood. That is why, in Norway, a salmon's journey is no longer left to the uncertainties of nature, but instead begins in highly advanced hatcheries, where every stage of its early life is carefully managed. Here, eggs and milk from carefully selected broodstock are fertilized under sterile conditions. Only the highest quality eggs are transferred to freshwater incubation systems, where temperature, oxygen levels, and water flow are precisely controlled, transforming nature's harsh survival odds into a carefully managed process. After several months, the young salmon are raised in closed rearing tanks with scientifically balanced feeding programs, before gradually adapting to seawater and being transferred to the ocean. From there, millions of salmon begin growing inside enormous sea cages scattered across Norway's cold, deep fjords. Beneath the surface, these farms operate like highly automated production systems. Cameras, sensors, and pneumatic feeding systems continuously monitor fish behavior and adjust feed distribution in real time, maximizing feed efficiency while minimizing waste and reducing environmental impact. Thanks to these strict farming practices, Norwegian salmon are raised with little to no antibiotics throughout the commercial production cycle, making Norway one of the world's leading examples of sustainable and high-quality salmon farming. Yet the greatest challenge in salmon farming does not come from rough seas or harsh weather, but from a parasite just a few millimeters long: sea lice. To combat this threat, Norwegian salmon farms employ advanced cameras, laser systems, and mechanical treatment technologies to detect infestations early, remove parasites efficiently, and minimize the need for chemical treatments. After 18 to 24 months, once the salmon reach market size, they are carefully harvested to minimize stress and preserve meat quality. They are then transported to processing facilities, where they are cleaned, filleted, and transformed into a wide range of premium products. From fresh salmon and traditional cured salmon to sushi-grade fillets and ingredients for fine cuisine, Norwegian salmon is shipped to hundreds of markets around the world every day, standing as one of the greatest success stories in modern aquaculture. Beyond its salmon, Norway possesses another remarkable strength: cold climate fruit production. Leading our with an annual harvest of 16,000 tons, supporting a fruit and cider industry worth more than $20 million. To explore this journey to Hardanger, the region that produces 0% of Norway's total fruit harvest. Unlike orchards spread across plains, Hardanger's apple trees grow on steep sides overlooking majestic, where long winters and rapidly changing weather create one of the most challenging yet distinctive environment cultivation. These conditions make late spring frosts the greatest entire harvest. Yet instead of warming the trees, growers spray water directly onto the blossoms. It may sound counterintuitive. Water freezes, it releases latent heat, keeping the flower buds at around 0 degrees, 32 degrees, and protecting them from freezing during the coldest nights. Once the risk of frost has passed, thousands of bee colonies are brought into the orchards just as the blossoms reach full bloom, maximizing pollination and improving fruit set. Before flowering begins, the ground beneath the trees is carefully maintained with specialized equipment to retain soil moisture, suppress weeds, and create the ideal conditions for healthy growth throughout the season. When autumn arrives, every apple is hand-picked to preserve its natural wax coating and prevent bruising. The fruit is then quickly transported to packing facilities, where automated grading systems inspect quality, sort the apples by size, and prepare them for the fresh market. A portion of the harvest is also pressed, fermented, and aged to produce Hardanger cider, a renowned specialty recognized with Protected Geographical Indication (PGI) status in Norway. Thanks to its cool climate, extended summer daylight, and the slow ripening process along the fjords, Hardanger apples develop an exceptionally crisp texture, bright acidity, and rich aroma that distinguish them from apples grown in warmer regions. These unique growing conditions have transformed this small region into Norway's apple capital and the birthplace of one of Northern Europe's most celebrated ciders. For much of the world, wheat is regarded as the backbone of agriculture. But in Norway, the short growing season and harsh northern climate make it a risky crop to cultivate. Instead, barley has become the country's grain of choice. Thanks to its shorter growing cycle, excellent cold tolerance, and ability to thrive in Nordic conditions, barley produces more than 600,000 tons annually, making it one of Norway's most important agricultural crops. From late August to early September, as the fields turn golden, the barley harvest officially begins. On fields scattered among rolling hills and family farms, medium-sized combine harvesters are the preferred choice for their agility and ability to navigate the terrain efficiently. In a single pass, the machines cut the crop, thresh the grain, separate the kernels, and collect them into onboard storage tanks, while the remaining straw is finely chopped and spread back across the field to enrich the soil. Immediately after harvest, the barley is transported to storage silos. There, automated distribution and ventilation systems keep the grain dry, well aerated, and in optimal condition before it is sorted according to its intended use. Around 70–80% of Norway's barley production is used as livestock feed, supporting the country's dairy and livestock industries. The remaining high-quality grain is sent to malt houses, where it is transformed into malt for some of Norway's most iconic beer brands, including Ringnes, Mack, and Aas, names that have been part of Norwegian brewing tradition for generations. Leaving behind the farms of the valleys, we now journey into Norway's rugged, snow-covered mountains, where winter is no longer the enemy of agriculture, but the foundation of one of Northern Europe's most distinctive farming traditions: mountain sheep grazing. What once seemed like an impractical and risky idea has evolved into a thriving system that transforms natural alpine pastures into meat, wool, and a livelihood for more than 14,000 farms. Despite living in such harsh conditions, with long winters and temperatures that often fall well below freezing, Norwegian sheep are remarkably well adapted to their environment. The cold climate encourages them to grow a thick, insulating fleece, while constantly roaming steep mountain slopes and feeding on natural vegetation produces leaner, firmer meat with a richer, more distinctive flavor. For this reason, when the snow melts and the mountain slopes turn green in summer, the sheep are released onto vast alpine pastures, where they roam freely, graze on fresh vegetation, drink from mountain streams, and build up nutrients. As winter returns, they are brought back to managed farms where hay and stored feed help maintain their condition through the coldest months of the year. This seasonal grazing cycle has transformed land that is unsuitable for crop cultivation into a valuable source of meat and wool. After each shearing season, the thick fleece is collected, sorted, washed, carded, and spun into wool for making warm clothing, blankets, carpets, and traditional handicrafts. Meanwhile, the meat becomes the key ingredient in fårikål, a slow-cooked lamb and cabbage stew widely regarded as Norway's national dish. First introduced in the 18th century to help Norwegians survive harsh winters and food shortages, potatoes have since become one of the country's most important staple crops, with an annual production of around 300,000 tons. Norway's in cold northern climate, every potato harvest is a race against time. The long daylight hours of summer allow the crop to grow rapidly, but an early snowfall can put the entire season at risk. The rocky terrain and glacial soils make harvesting particularly challenging. Specialized harvesters gently lift each ridge of soil before passing the potatoes through vibrating sieves that separate the tubers from rocks, soil, and plant debris. The cleaned potatoes are then transferred onto transport vehicles with minimal impact, helping to prevent bruising and preserve quality. In addition to the familiar yellow potato varieties, Norway is also known for beet, a red-skinned, yellow-fleshed potato prized for its firm texture and rich flavor, making it a favorite in Nordic cuisine. After leaving the fields, the potatoes are quickly transported to processing facilities, where they are washed, graded, and sorted. The highest quality potatoes are packaged for the fresh market, while the rest are processed into French fries, mashed potatoes, starch, and snack products, supplying well-known brands such as Lay's, Marud, and Kim's. From a crop that once helped Norwegians survive harsh winters, the potato has grown into a cornerstone of the country's agriculture and daily life, a testament to how Norway has turned its challenging natural environment into a lasting agricultural advantage. As the home of Europe's last remaining wild reindeer herds, Norway views reindeer as far more than animals that survive in the snow. They have become an iconic symbol of the Arctic, helping attract 1.29 million international overnight visitors each year. Unlike conventional livestock farms, reindeer herding in Norway follows the rhythm of nature. The herds migrate seasonally from summer grazing grounds to winter feeding areas, where they use their hooves to dig through deep snow in search of lichens and other low-growing vegetation. While reindeer herding in Russia is often associated with vast tundra landscapes and massive herds, Norway's operations are generally smaller in scale, but far more closely managed, combining centuries-old indigenous traditions with modern technology. Today, camera-equipped drones help herders monitor the herds from above, while GPS collars fitted to selected animals track migration routes, map grazing areas, and provide early warnings if the herd moves beyond designated safe zones. Some operations also use electronic ear tags, automated weighing systems, and digital sorting equipment to record the weight, condition, and health of individual animals. When the harvest season arrives, reindeer that meet the required standards for age, weight, and overall condition are carefully separated from the herd and transported to processing facilities that comply with European animal welfare and food safety standards. The meat is then graded, chilled, and distributed to the market, supplying more than 2,000 tons annually across the Nordic region, while also reaching export markets around the world. With nearly 75% of its population of Chinese descent, alongside Malay and Indian communities, rice remains the most consumed staple food in Singapore. However, rather than allocating scarce land and water resources to paddy fields, the island nation imports almost all of its rice. Instead, its agricultural land is dedicated entirely to leafy greens, eggs, and aquaculture, food groups that deliver far higher nutritional value per square meter. And now, let's step into the vertical farms, where Singapore transforms old parking garages or warehouses into urban vegetable factories, producing up to 80% of the island nation's homegrown produce. Inside these enclosed spaces, the process begins with a fully automated seeding stage. Ultrafine vacuum nozzles, measuring only a few millimeters wide, pick up each seed and precisely place it into individual substrate cells. After just a few days in the nursery, the seedlings, now sturdy enough to grow, are immediately transferred to the cultivation racks. At multi-tiered farming towers like Sky Green's, aluminum structures can reach up to 9 meters high and accommodate 38 stacked tiers of trays. Automated lifting systems and robots move each tray to its exact position, transforming a tiny plot of land in the heart of the city into a high-rise field operating year-round. To replace sunlight, LED lights run for about 14 to 18 hours a day, providing the exact light spectrum plants require for photosynthesis. But light alone isn't enough. In Singapore, this model only truly works when it solves the vital challenge of water. Drip irrigation systems deliver nutrient solutions directly to the root zone, minimizing both evaporation and waste. Excess water is then collected, UV sterilized, and recirculated, saving up to 95% of this liquid gold, compared to traditional farming. Thanks to this modern process, greens like bok choy, lettuce, and kale typically take less than a month to harvest. Vegetables are harvested, packaged right on site, and distributed to retail chains in just a few short hours. The truth is, Singapore never expected local produce to be cheaper than imported vegetables. Even though prices are often twice as high as those from Malaysia, China, or Australia, each bunch of high-tech greens is still considered a strategic investment, ensuring freshness and safety while maintaining a stable supply even when global supply chains are disrupted. If indoor hydroponic vegetables still require electricity for photosynthesis, mushrooms are virtually immune to that limitation. Lacking chlorophyll, they obtain energy by breaking down organic substrates rather than relying on sunlight. As a result, Singapore can make use of all kinds of enclosed spaces to cultivate mushrooms, from warehouses and old shipping containers to even bedrooms. Here, mushroom bags are stacked in multiple tiers to maximize space efficiency. Although they don't need light, they absolutely require sufficient water and humidity, two vital factors to prevent the mushroom pins from shriveling and drying out. In traditional farms, growers still have to spray water regularly to maintain humidity for each shelf of substrate bags. Meanwhile, in sealed growing rooms, automated misting systems combined with ventilation and air conditioning continuously maintain a humidity level of around 90%, helping mushrooms develop uniformly without water accumulation that could cause disease. About 2 to 3 weeks after fruiting stimulation, farmers harvest the mushrooms by cutting the clusters close to the base without damaging the remaining spawn. They then trim the stems, package them in trays, and transport them to supermarkets nationwide. What is truly impressive is that this model is also exceptionally eco-friendly by fully utilizing byproducts. After each harvest cycle, the spent substrate bags are fed into a shredder to be ground into a fine mulch. Instead of being discarded into landfills, they enter a composting system to become organic fertilizer for growing vegetables and ornamental plants, completing a perfect green circular cycle where not a single fragment of resources goes to waste. Leaving behind the quiet mushroom rooms enveloped in darkness, let us turn to a product even more vital to Singapore's food security: automated egg production factories. With just 3 domestic poultry farms, Singapore currently supplies about 30% of its national egg demand. At Choose Agriculture, one of Singapore's most modern farms, more than 300 million eggs are produced each year. Notably, because limited land forces farms to operate close to residential areas, every stage of the poultry farming process must meet strict standards regarding odor, noise, and disease prevention. Millions of hens here are housed in multi-tiered climate-controlled coops, integrated with 24/7 monitoring sensors. Furthermore, their nutrition is optimized with feed mixed with probiotics, which significantly reduces digestive odors while boosting their immune systems to minimize reliance on antibiotics. The moment an egg is laid, an automated conveyor system transfers it directly to the processing center without human contact. Upon arrival, automated UV technology eliminates salmonella bacteria and detects microcracks, while the system sorts, washes, and packages the eggs onto trays at a speed of tens of thousands per hour, producing ultra-clean eggs suitable for raw consumption, alongside specialty lines enriched with omega-3. To thoroughly solve the urban waste problem, all chicken manure must be collected via a multi-tiered conveyor system and sent to a centralized facility for drying, transforming into organic fertilizer to feed back into vegetable farms. It is a process free of noise and offensive odors spreading to the community, and most importantly, it minimizes the risk of external disease outbreaks. It may sound paradoxical that an island nation home to one of the busiest shipping lanes on the planet, with over 100,000 vessel movements a year, can hardly farm fish at sea. The reason stems from a bitter lesson in the past, when outbreaks of red tide and oil spill incidents wiped out hundreds of tons of traditional cage-farmed fish overnight, forcing the island nation to reshape its survival strategy, moving the entire marine fish farming process into virtually enclosed, floating factories. On average, a resident here consumes up to 22 kilograms of seafood annually, well above the global average. With the country importing up to 90% of its food supply, seafood is not merely a familiar staple, but also the highest value source of fresh protein that Singapore strives to be self-sufficient in. At EcoArk, a floating farm worth over $4 million located in the Johor Strait, high-value fish species like barramundi, red snapper, and grouper live entirely in 4 massive steel tanks with a total capacity of up to 1,900 cubic meters. Notably, all seawater undergoes a strict closed-loop treatment process before entering the tanks: multi-stage coarse filtration, UV sterilization, and ozone aeration. Thanks to this technological barrier, the fish's living environment is completely isolated from pathogens, microplastics, and pollution caused by passing vessels. While open-sea aquaculture cages rely heavily on weather conditions and natural currents, the AI system at EcoArk automatically adjusts artificial current speeds within the tanks. This continuous water movement encourages active swimming, yielding meat as firm as wild fish while allowing stocking densities to be maximized. As a result, despite its modest surface area, this floating farm can yield up to 166 tons of fish per year, 20 times higher than traditional sea cages of equivalent scale. Do you happen to thoroughly despise flies? Intriguingly, if it is the black soldier fly, a disease-free, non-biting insect with an elongated body resembling a wasp, it serves as a strategic biological weapon for Singapore. Dubbed nature's cleanup crew for their ability to turn food waste into protein-rich animal feed, they are building an industry that drastically drives down the cost of marine fish production. Insecta, Singapore's first black soldier fly biotechnology company, is located right in the heart of the bustling Queenstown urban area, adjacent to HDB residential blocks, schools, and public libraries. Even though they are native forest insects that naturally avoid populated areas, the black soldier flies here are fully domesticated within a closed-loop system that is odorless and causes zero disturbance to the surrounding community. Inside space-optimized, multi-tiered breeding trays, millions of larvae act as biological processing plants for waste. During their 2 to 3 week larval stage, they eat relentlessly, capable of consuming food waste, weighing up to 4 times their body weight every single day. Their primary food source consists of byproducts from the local food processing industry, such as okara soy pulp and spent brewery grains, reducing organic waste volume by up to 70%. After pupating and emerging as adult flies, they live for a brief period of just 3 to 7 days, just long enough to mate and lay eggs without biting or causing any harm to the surrounding environment. While drying insects for livestock feed is common in many places, Singapore pushes biorefining further to close the loop on its circular economy. The extraction line recovers 2 high-value compounds from the black soldier flies, melanin and chitosan, which are used to produce biodegradable food wraps. Meanwhile, the protein and fat are processed into animal feed powder, and the frass is collected as organic fertilizer for vegetable farms. Known as the Guaraná capital of Brazil, the city of Maués in the state of Amazonas is the birthplace of one of the most iconic plants of the Amazon region. Guaraná is a native species that has been cultivated and used by the Satere Maué people for hundreds of years. Beyond its deep cultural significance, guaraná seeds contain around 2 to 5% natural caffeine, a higher concentration than ordinary coffee beans, along with various antioxidant compounds. These unique properties have made guaraná a valuable ingredient in the food and beverage industry, as well as one of the important crops contributing to Brazil's agricultural economy. Producing high-quality guaraná requires patience and careful attention from farmers during every harvest season. When ripe, the fruit's outer skin turns bright red and naturally splits open, revealing a black seed surrounded by white flesh, creating an appearance remarkably similar to an open eye. This unique transformation is also a sign that the fruit has reached the ideal stage for harvesting. Guaraná is still harvested mainly by hand. Farmers carefully pick each fruit individually, or use scissors to cut branches and clusters that have reached the right level of maturity. Since the fruits on the same plant do not ripen at the same time, machines are almost impossible to use effectively during this stage. Throughout the harvest season, farmers must return to the plantations multiple times to collect only the ripe fruits, while allowing the unripe ones to continue developing. Although this method requires significant time and labor, it helps preserve the quality of guaraná seeds before they move on to the processing stage. After harvesting, guaraná fruits undergo processing to remove the red outer skin and white pulp, leaving only the seeds inside. These seeds are then cleaned, briefly fermented, and roasted at controlled temperatures to reduce moisture, enhance their natural aroma, and improve storage quality. Finally, the guaraná seeds are ground into a fine powder or transformed into various products such as tea, dietary supplements, soft drinks, and energy drinks. Among them, the most famous is Guaraná Antarctica, an iconic Brazilian beverage that is widely consumed across the country and exported to many markets around the world. Brazil is one of the world's largest cashew producers, with the state of Ceará considered the country's cashew capital. What makes this crop fascinating is that the fruit we commonly call the cashew is actually the swollen, fleshy stalk of the plant, while the true cashew nut grows beneath it, attached to the outside of the fruit. Few people know that the cashew apple contains around 5 times more vitamin C than an orange and has a unique flavor profile, combining natural sweetness with a slightly astringent taste. When the harvest season begins, ripe cashew fruits naturally fall to the ground with the nuts still attached underneath. Farmers collect each fruit by hand, then separate the nuts from the fleshy fruit either directly in the orchard or at a nearby processing facility. The cashew nuts are dried before moving on to further processing, while the juicy cashew apples, containing nearly 90% water and highly prone to damage, can only remain fresh for about 1 to 2 days after harvesting. As a result, this fruit is rarely exported in its fresh form, meaning that experiencing its original flavor is almost exclusively reserved for people living in Brazil or in cashew-growing regions. At many traditional processing facilities in Brazil, workers still crush the fruits by stepping on them directly to break down the flesh and extract the maximum amount of juice before filtration. This juice is then processed into beverages, jams, wine, or vinegar, while the cashew nuts are steamed or roasted to remove the corrosive oil contained in the shell before the inner kernels are extracted. Finally, the cashew kernels are sorted, roasted, packaged, or transformed into a variety of high-value products, helping bring Brazilian cashews to markets around the world. Brazil is currently the world's largest producer of sisal, with the state of Bahia recognized as the country's sisal capital. Sisal is a species of agave renowned for its exceptional drought tolerance, allowing it to thrive in arid regions where many other crops struggle to survive. What gives this plant its value is neither its fruit nor its stem, but the remarkably strong fibers hidden inside its leaves. Thanks to their high tensile strength, excellent abrasion resistance, and biodegradability, sisal fibers have become an important raw material for manufacturing a wide range of products around the world. After about 2 to 3 years of cultivation, sisal plants reach their first harvest. Unlike many crops that are harvested only once, sisal can be harvested continuously for several years. Farmers begin by cutting the mature outer leaves close to the base using sharp knives or sickles, while leaving the younger leaves in the center untouched so they can continue growing. During each harvest, only a portion of the leaves is removed to ensure the plant retains enough nutrients to remain healthy and produce future harvests, and more difficult to extract. At the processing plant, each leaf passes through a decortication machine, which strips away the pulp and outer skin, leaving only the long fibers inside. These fibers are then thoroughly washed and either sun-dried or machine-dried before being graded according to their length, color, and overall quality. Finally, the sisal fibers are compressed into large bales and shipped to manufacturers that produce ropes, cables, carpets, brushes, sacks, and a wide range of environmentally friendly materials. Brazil is currently the largest producer of tilapia in Latin America and ranks among the world's leading tilapia-producing countries. Thanks to its abundant freshwater resources and favorable climate, tilapia grow rapidly, develop firm, high-quality flesh, and have become one of the most important species in Brazil's aquaculture industry. Today, Brazilian tilapia not only supplies the domestic market, but is also exported to many countries around the world. After approximately 6 to 8 months of farming, when the fish reach a weight of around 800 grams to over 1 kilogram, the tilapia are ready for harvest. Farmers use large nets to concentrate the fish into one corner of the cage, then transfer them onto boats or conveyor systems, using hand nets or specialized fish pumps. The entire process is carried out as quickly as possible to minimize stress on the fish and preserve the quality of the meat. Immediately after harvesting, the tilapia are placed in ice water tanks to rapidly lower their body temperature before being transported to processing plants. At the processing plant, the tilapia are thoroughly washed, scaled, gutted, and filleted, either by machine or by hand, depending on the final product. The fillets are then carefully inspected for quality, rapidly frozen, and packaged for export to markets around the world. Beyond the fillets, nearly every part of the fish is put to good use. The skin is processed into collagen and leather, while the bones, heads, and internal organs are converted into fish meal or animal feed, allowing almost the entire fish to be utilized with minimal waste. When people think of Brazil's livestock industry, massive cattle herds usually come to mind. However, few realize that the country is also home to one of the largest water buffalo populations in the Americas, with about half of them living on Maranhão Island at the mouth of the Amazon River. On Maranhão Island, water buffalo are primarily raised on vast naturally flooded grasslands. Thanks to their excellent swimming ability and remarkable adaptation to wetland environments, they can freely cross waterways, graze on flooded pastures, and thrive throughout the year. After giving birth and entering the milking stage, female buffalo are separated from the herd and brought to the milking area on a fixed daily schedule. Before milking, their udders are carefully cleaned to ensure hygiene and food safety, after which the milk is collected either by machine or by hand, depending on the size of the farm. The fresh milk is chilled immediately after collection and quickly transported to processing plants, where it is used to produce Brazil's famous buffalo mozzarella cheese. At the processing plant, the buffalo milk is first pasteurized before beneficial bacterial cultures and coagulating enzymes are added to form curds. After the curds are cut and the whey is separated, the cheese mass is immersed in hot water and repeatedly stretched and kneaded until it develops the smooth, elastic texture that is characteristic of mozzarella. Finally, the cheese is shaped into balls or blocks, cooled in a brine solution, and packaged before being distributed to the market. With its rich, creamy flavor, soft texture, and signature stretchiness, buffalo mozzarella has become one of the most iconic products of Maranhão Island and a standout specialty of Brazil's livestock industry. Few people know that on Maranhão Island, water buffaloes were once used by local police to patrol flooded wetlands and muddy terrain where conventional vehicles could not travel. From serving as a unique means of transportation to providing the rich milk used to produce premium mozzarella cheese, water buffaloes have become a symbol of Maranhão Island and an essential part of Brazil's livestock industry. Brazil is one of the world's leading honey exporters, thanks to its incredibly rich flora, which stretches from the Amazon rainforest to vast eucalyptus forests and extensive fruit orchards. With an abundant supply of blossoms available almost year-round, Brazilian bees produce a wide variety of premium honeys, each with its own distinctive flavor and character. To harvest high-quality honey, beekeepers place their hives in areas with abundant flowering plants. After several weeks of work, the honey is ready for harvest once the honeycomb cells have been sealed with a thin layer of white beeswax, a natural sign that the honey has fully matured. Before opening the hive, beekeepers use smoke to calm the colony, reducing the bees' activity and minimizing the risk of stings. The honey frames are then carefully removed, the wax caps are cut away, and the frames are placed into a centrifugal extractor to spin out the honey. The extracted honey is filtered to remove wax and other natural impurities before being transferred to settling tanks ahead of bottling. Throughout the entire process, great care is taken to preserve the honey's natural flavor, color, and beneficial enzymes. The final product is pure honey, with its color and taste varying depending on the flowers from which the bees collected nectar. In addition to its Africanized honeybees, Brazil is also home to another remarkable treasure from the world of bees: more than 300 species of native stingless bees. These unique bees have been kept by indigenous communities in the Amazon for thousands of years to produce a distinctive high-value honey with a flavor unlike that of conventional honey. Although stingless bees produce far less honey than ordinary honeybees, their honey is considered a rare delicacy, deeply connected to the Amazon rainforest ecosystem and Brazil's rich cultural heritage. It is no exaggeration to say that even a single frost sweeping across a few hillsides in Turkey can send shockwaves through the global chocolate industry. Accounting for nearly 70% of the world's production, Turkey not only leads in cultivation scale, but also holds enough sway to dictate supply, influence prices, and shake the entire global confectionery industry. To learn about the tree that has sustained generations of local people, we head to Ordu, a region stretching along the Black Sea coast and considered the cradle of Turkish hazelnuts. In the past, to harvest an entire hazelnut orchard, farmers had to use multiple separate machines for each stage, from sweeping and raking the nuts into rows to vacuuming and cleaning them. However, since the introduction of self-propelled harvesters in the 2000s, the entire process has been nearly consolidated into a single pass, shortening processing time, drastically reducing manual labor, and cutting harvesting costs by at least 50%. As the machine moves into the orchard, two front-mounted disc brushes continuously spin close to the ground, pulling hazelnuts, dry leaves, and twigs from both sides into the center aisle. Shortly after, a high-powered suction system draws the entire mixture into the machine, where multi-tiered vibrating screens and powerful airflows successively remove soil, stones, leaves, and light debris. The standard nuts are conveyed straight up into the rear storage bin as soon as they exit the cleaning system. Once full, the bin unloads directly onto trucks for immediate transport to processing facilities. At the plant, the hazelnuts first pass through a screening system to remove any remaining soil, leaves, and twigs. They are then transferred to a temperature-controlled drying chamber to lower their moisture content, prevent mold, and protect the quality of the kernels inside. Once the standard dryness is reached, each batch is further sorted by size, shelled, and meticulously inspected piece by piece to eliminate shriveled, damaged, or discolored nuts. The high-grade kernels are ultimately processed into countless high-value products, with the most famous being Nutella, the chocolate hazelnut spread that has won over hundreds of millions of people worldwide. As Turkey's iconic goat breed for centuries, the Angora was even featured on the back of the 50 lira banknote between 1938 and 1952. Not only a source of national pride, they have also been likened to raw silk production machines. As evidence, in 1959 alone, this commodity contributed nearly 7% of Turkey's total export value, turning the goat's fleece into a national asset. On the central Anatolian plateaus, standing 800 to 1,500 meters high, where summers are scorching and winters are blanketed in snow, Angora goats are still raised to produce one of the world's most valuable natural fibers. Every morning, they are released in herds onto wide hillsides, slowly grazing on fresh grass, shrub leaves, herbs, and patches of vegetation. During the dry season, the goats can navigate slopes and rocky areas to make the most of scarce food sources, while in winter, they must use their hooves to scrape away thin layers of snow to find grass underneath. By evening, the herd is driven back to the barn for shelter against the cold and supplemented with hay, alfalfa, grains, and minerals, helping the mohair continue to grow long, lustrous, and durable. When the goats are about 12 months old and the mohair reaches 12 to 15 centimeters, the first harvesting season officially begins. The goats are placed on the ground or tilted slightly backward to keep them steady, while the shearer runs large shears or electric clippers from the belly up to the torso, shoulders, and then the back, aiming to separate the entire fleece into a single, seamless sheet rather than cutting it into separate patches. A single miscut or a second pass over the same area can break the individual fibers, significantly reducing the value of the entire mohair sheet. Leaving behind the plateaus where Angora goats produce their precious raw silk, the journey continues westward to the Aegean region, where rolling hills are blanketed by centuries-old olive groves. It is from this land that about 4 million tons of olives are harvested each year, helping to place Turkey among the world's leading olive-producing powerhouses. Unlike flat olive-growing regions like Spain, about 75% of olive trees in Turkey are located on hillsides or steep terrain. Shakers are used to handle lower branches, long poles reach the upper boughs, and underneath, a large net system is spread across the ground to catch all the falling fruit. When the shaking device is activated, mechanical force is transmitted straight into the trunk, causing the heavily laden clusters of olives to detach from the branches one by one and fall directly onto the nets, thereby significantly minimizing bruising and contamination with dirt and sand. From this moment on, all the olives must be rushed straight to the factory as quickly as possible, because just a few hours of delay can cause the fruit to ferment and lose quality right from the first pressing. The processing procedure begins with cleaning away impurities, followed by crushing the whole fruit, both flesh and pits, and mixing it at cold-press temperatures for about 20 to 45 minutes. The oil is then centrifuged to separate the water, filtered, and immediately bottled in dark glass or metal cans to prevent light-induced degradation. The entire process must be completed within 24 hours of harvest to preserve the freshest flavor possible. Compared to Italian or Greek olive oil, Turkish oil is generally about 30 to 40% cheaper, largely because it is still exported in bulk rather than under proprietary brands. In return, the competitive price allows buyers to access freshly pressed oil right during the late-year harvest, the time when polyphenol levels are typically at their highest. In the early 20th century, following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, imported coffee in Turkey became expensive and scarce, forcing the nation to seek a beverage it could produce domestically. From a mere substitute, tea quickly spread across all social classes, becoming a daily habit and making Turkey the world's largest consumer of tea. Amidst this shift, Rise tea rose to become the most prominent name, laying the foundation for a tea industry valued at approximately $1.3 billion USD. From May to October, as the tea hills enter their strongest growth phase, the harvest officially begins. In Turkey, farmers are not overly strict about the 2 leaves in a bud rule applied in many other famous tea regions. Lacking the high-capacity harvesting machines found in Japan, they use handheld shears combined with cloth bags to quickly and neatly trim the tea buds along perfectly straight rows. After harvesting, bags of fresh tea are gathered for rapid transport to the processing plant. However, most of the tea plantations in Rise are located on high and steep mountain slopes, making transportation particularly difficult. To overcome this obstacle, locals have built small cable car systems running across the tea hills, specifically used to carry bags of leaves across valleys and treacherous terrain. Just hours after harvest, the tea leaves are brought into the factory to wither under controlled airflow. Just a few hours after harvest, the tea leaves are transported straight to the factory to be withered by a controlled stream of air. Subsequently, the raw material is gently rolled to break down the cells, triggering a natural oxidation process that creates its characteristic reddish-brown color and rich aroma. Once the desired quality is achieved, the tea is dried to lock in the flavor, then sorted and packaged. It is thanks to the Black Sea climate, where thick snow covers the ground every winter, that pests and diseases are completely eliminated, allowing the tea to grow naturally without the need for pesticides or chemicals. This characteristic gives Turkish tea its signature mellow taste, low astringency, and inherent purity, making it an iconic beverage in daily life. As one of Turkey's oldest native sheep breeds, the Akaraman is likened to the soul of the Anatolian steppe, accounting for over 40% of the country's total sheep population. Beyond its close connection to the daily lives of the people, this breed provides large quantities of meat, milk, and wool, thereby creating livelihoods for thousands of farms. Unlike many sheep breeds with almost uniform white coats, the Akaraman stands out with patches of dark wool around its head, neck, and legs, and most notably, a large fatty tail in the rear. This fat deposit acts as a stored energy reserve, helping them survive through periods of arid pastures and scarce food. To maintain that vitality from the very beginning, lambs are often raised separately to monitor their health and control their diets. On modern farms, automated milk feeding systems ensure each lamb receives sufficient nutrition before joining the herd once they are strong enough. Upon reaching maturity, hardly any part of the Akaraman goes to waste. Beyond its utilized wool, This sheep breed also yields rich, creamy milk high in protein and minerals used to process numerous traditional products. Even so, its most prominent value still lies in its firm, flavorful meat, which features in a wide array of signature Turkish dishes, from kebabs, skewered meats, and stews to roasted lamb. Accounting for 27% of global production, with over 300,000 tons harvested each year, Turkey has maintained its position as the world's #1 fig powerhouse for many consecutive years. From a tiny fruit with a short season, the nation has turned figs into the foundation of a massive industry, stretching from the Aegean valleys to modern processing and export plants. From around July to October each year, Turkey's fig-growing regions enter their busiest harvest season. Unlike purple figs, which need to be picked right as they ripen, Aydın's renowned Sarılop yellow figs demand patience for the fruit to reach optimal, dry ripeness. Farmers wait for the figs to fully mature and shrivel slightly under the sun before gently shaking them down with poles or letting them drop naturally to the ground. Only then are individual figs carefully picked up and brought to collection points, once the sweetness has been naturally concentrated right on the tree. The difference in harvesting methods also leads to two completely separate processing routes. Purple figs are swiftly transported to packing center, graded by size and quality, and then packaged for the market. Just 14 kilometers south of the Strait of Gibraltar, Morocco opens up a world in stark contrast to Spain. From the fertile Mediterranean plains in the north, the landscape quickly transitions into semi-arid plateaus before blending into the edge of the Sahara Desert. Cutting across this terrain is the Atlas Range, where winter snow and ice melt to provide a vital lifeline for river systems and large reservoirs. However, that natural water supply is still not enough to sustain an export-driven agriculture. Morocco is forced to utilize every water source, building over 150 large dams, expanding drip irrigation systems, operating desalination plants along the Atlantic coast, and even harvesting fog. On the slopes of the Anti-Atlas Mountains, giant nets are erected to catch the mist blown in by the cold Canary Current. Millions of tiny water droplets condense and flow down into storage tanks, turning into a precious source of water for daily use and irrigation in highland villages. More concerningly, Morocco also faces immense pressure regarding land. Less than 1/5 of its territory is arable, while this land fund continues to shrink due to drought and shifting sands. Therefore, it can be said that Morocco's agriculture is forced to follow a harsh survival equation to generate more value from every single drop of water and every single hectare of land. Right across the semi-desert regions, nearly 95% of the world's remaining natural argan forests are concentrated in southwestern Morocco, providing an almost exclusive source of raw material for the liquid gold that is 10 times more expensive than olive oil. This area has been recognized by UNESCO as a biosphere reserve to protect its unique ecosystem and develop sustainable livelihoods for local communities. Thanks to root systems plunging dozens of meters deep to independently source water, argan trees can grow resiliently amidst the arid land, serving both as a shield to halt desertification and as the lifeblood for about 3 million people. Visiting Morocco during the harvesting season, you will encounter a striking sight: native goats climbing up to 10-meter-high argan branches to eat the fruit. Although seeds were once traditionally collected from goat droppings, cooperatives have completely eliminated this practice today to ensure the strictest hygiene standards for the international market. Instead of shaking the trees like olives, locals pick up every single argan fruit that has naturally ripened and fallen to the ground, transporting them to cooperatives for processing. They do this to avoid breaking branches and to help the trees continue thriving across generations. After harvesting, all argan fruits must be sun-dried before removing the hard, dry flesh. At the cooperatives of the Berber people, North Africa's oldest indigenous community, stone hammers are used to crack open the hard shells, and hands are used to extract the kernels inside. Most women here once had very few opportunities for education and employment, but thanks to the argan cooperatives, they can make a living by participating in almost every stage of argan oil production, from shelling and oil pressing to final packaging. For culinary oil, the kernels are lightly roasted and then ground using traditional stone mills, creating a distinct aroma and a rich, creamy flavor. As for cosmetic oil, to avoid degrading precious nutrients under the effect of heat, the kernels go straight into cold presses to retain the maximum amount of vitamin E and natural unsaturated fatty acids. Beyond serving domestic cuisine with aromatic oil-drizzled couscous or the renowned amlu almond butter, the majority of argan oil is now exported to the European Union and the United States, serving as the foundation for high-end cosmetic lines by brands like L'Oreal and The Body Shop. Rich in vitamin E and natural fatty acids, this liquid gold delivers exceptional moisturizing, deep repairing, anti-aging, and hair protection benefits. Leaving behind the ancient argan forests, we head to the Souss-Massa Plain, where a semi-arid coastal strip has been transformed into one of Africa's largest greenhouse capitals, supplying millions of tons of fruits and vegetables to the European market every year. These structures are called net houses or film greenhouses rather than traditional glass houses because the local climate under the influence of the Sahara Desert is extremely harsh and scorching hot. Instead of using glass to trap heat, Moroccan farmers use flexible polyethylene plastic sheeting combined with specialized shading nets. This design helps reflect excess solar radiation, lowers temperatures, and fully harnesses cool sea breezes to naturally ventilate the cultivation areas. However, the greatest challenge for these greenhouse operations is water. To solve this survival equation, Morocco has put into operation the Agadir seawater desalination plant, one of the largest facilities in the world combining domestic water supply with agricultural irrigation. Seawater from the Atlantic Ocean, after having its salt removed, is piped directly to the farms. Thanks to this precious water source, the majority of greenhouse farms in Morocco utilize automated drip irrigation systems. Water and nutrients are precisely delivered to each plant root in real time, saving up to 40% of water compared to traditional flood irrigation. Inside endless rows of greenhouses, farmers cultivate high-value crops year-round, such as blueberries, strawberries, and bell peppers. But tomatoes are the undisputed king of production. Strict control over temperature and irrigation enables tomato yields to reach 200 to 300 tons per hectare annually, 4 to 5 times higher than outdoor farming, while ensuring uniform fruit quality. Notwithstanding major climatic hurdles, Morocco occupies a prime geographical location for export. Separated from Europe by just a narrow strait, it allows trucks carrying fresh produce to reach Paris or Madrid in only 48 to 72 hours. Specifically regarding tomatoes, Morocco has surpassed Spain to become the second largest supplier to the European Union, accounting for roughly 70% of total tomato imports from outside the EU bloc into this market. Can you believe it? Morocco has not only surpassed Spain in tomato exports, but has also quietly become one of Europe's leading citrus-supplying empires every winter. Also on the fertile plains alongside modern greenhouses, Morocco's agriculture sector now boasts over 120,000 hectares of citrus orchards, producing an average of over 3 million tons annually and generating nearly $1 billion in export value, depending on the season. Despite being located right on the edge of the arid desert, the plantations here remain lush thanks to a modern network of reservoirs, canals, and drip irrigation systems, carrying water from melting snow on the Atlas Mountains across tens of kilometers to nourish each tree root. About 80% of Morocco's citrus exports consist of small-fruited, thin-skinned, easy-to-peel varieties such as Clementine, Maroc Late, and Noor. The secret behind their flavor comes from the harshness of nature itself. Intense daytime sunlight helps the trees produce abundant sugars, while nighttime temperatures drop sharply due to the simultaneous influence of the desert and the Atlantic Ocean, causing the sugars to be locked inside each segment rather than depleted. For Moroccan orchard owners, the busiest season begins in October and lasts until March of the following year, just when most of Europe enters winter, causing domestic fruit supplies to drop sharply. Harvesting requires absolute precision. Workers must use scissors to cut close to the stem to avoid tearing the peel, as even a small scratch can significantly reduce the value of the entire shipment. Immediately after leaving the orchards, trucks loaded with citrus fruits are gathered at large-scale automated packing plants. The processing begins with washing using ozone water, after which the fruits are passed directly through AI camera systems and optical sensors to automatically analyze every detail regarding size, color, shape, and uniformity, while eliminating even the smallest surface defects. It can be said that citrus is Morocco's most important export card. Proof of this is that, facing fierce competition from Egypt and Turkey to maintain market share in Europe and the UK, the government has launched export subsidies of up to about $100 per ton of products leaving the port. The goal is not only to protect the position of Moroccan citrus on European supermarket shelves, but also to turn this North African nation into the Mediterranean region's hub for high-quality fruit supply. Leaving the heavy-laden orchards on land, we cast our gaze along the coastline of over 3,500 kilometers, stretching across the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, which establishes Morocco's clearest position as a superpower with its fisheries sector, bringing in more than $3 billion in foreign exchange for the country each year. Despite facing many pressures from the depletion of natural resources, Morocco's offshore waters are fortunately located in one of the 4 rare regions in the world where the upwelling phenomenon occurs. These cold northern currents continuously push nutrients from the deep sea to the surface, creating a nutrient-rich environment to attract massive schools of pelagic fish, especially sardines. This unique natural resource has made Morocco the world's largest exporter of sardines, accounting for about 42% of global canned sardine export market share and contributing 3% to the country's total export turnover. All fishing activities rely on more than 150 traditional units and a workforce of over 100,000 fishermen stationed at sea, strictly controlled by the government through a rigorous management system to preserve precious resources against exploitation pressure. Immediately after docking, the fresh batches of sardines are transferred directly into modern industrial processing systems, with dozens of large and small enterprises located along the coast. After being salted and steam cooked, they have their heads and tails completely removed, which helps the fish flesh firm up and makes bone separation easier during processing, and are then neatly arranged in tin cans with olive oil or tomato sauce. Every year, 90% of the sardine production from this country enters the export race to more than 70 countries worldwide, competing directly with Portugal, Spain, and Thailand. Meanwhile, domestically, Fresh sardines marinated in chermoula on charcoal grills are very familiar to the people of Morocco, providing an abundant source of protein at an affordable price. For much of the Western world, barley is primarily associated with brewing beer or feeding livestock. But on the roof of the world, it is a life-sustaining grain, covering around 70% of Tibet's cultivated farmland and supporting an entire civilization through thousands of harsh, freezing seasons. To survive at elevations of more than 4,000 meters, this remarkable crop has evolved an exceptionally short growing cycle, reaching maturity in just 100 to 120 days. Because of this narrow window, harvesting must be completed quickly in late summer, before the first winter frosts descend across the plateau. Across the highland valleys, modern combine harvesters sweep through golden barley fields, cutting the stalks close to the ground while threshing the grain directly in the field. One of the greatest advantages of naked barley is that its kernels are not tightly enclosed by a tough husk like those of common barley. A light threshing is enough to separate the grain, allowing it to be processed immediately without the need for milling or dehusking. After harvesting and cleaning, a portion of the barley is roasted until it releases a rich, nutty aroma before being finely ground into a light brown flour known as tsampa. For centuries, Tibetans have carried a small wooden bowl, adding tsampa flour to butter tea for a quick and nourishing meal. The flour is skillfully mixed by hand with the hot tea until it forms soft, dough-like balls. Although simple, this traditional food provides a rich source of carbohydrates, helping people endure winter temperatures that can fall to -20 degrees. Meanwhile, another portion of the barley is brewed into beer through a process of soaking, steaming, and fermentation. Combining traditional techniques with modern production methods, the result is a fragrant, refreshing barley beer with a smooth, rustic flavor that is generally milder and easier to enjoy than the more bitter styles familiar to many first-time drinkers. Every July, the valleys of the Tibetan Plateau transform into a vast golden sea, as rapeseed flowers burst into bloom, marking the beginning of the year's largest honey harvesting and rapeseed harvest season. Unlike rapeseed grown in the mild lowlands, Tibetan rapeseed thrives in an environment with dramatic day-to-night temperature swings and relatively low rainfall. As soon as spring brings warmer weather to the plateau valleys, farmers begin sowing the seeds. To withstand the intense ultraviolet radiation at elevations of several thousand meters, Tibetan rapeseed naturally accumulates high levels of antioxidants, a characteristic that contributes to the rich texture and distinctive flavor of the oil produced in this high-altitude region. By early autumn, when the seed pods turn dark brown, farmers race to complete the harvest before cold winds can scatter the mature seeds. With the mechanization rate of rapeseed harvesting now exceeding 65%, Tibetan farmers have adopted a highly efficient two-stage harvesting system. First, swathers are used to cut the crop and lay it in neat windrows, allowing the plants to dry naturally under the sun so the seeds can ripen evenly. Several days later, specialized pickup combines move through the fields, collecting the windrows, threshing the seeds, and bagging the harvest directly on site. This method not only minimizes seed losses caused by strong winds, but also greatly reduces labor compared with traditional hand harvesting. From there, the tiny rapeseed seeds are transported directly to local oil mills, where they are pressed into cooking oil. In addition to serving as a staple edible oil, rapeseed oil has long been used to fuel butter lamps in Tibetan monasteries, alongside traditional yak butter. Leaving behind the mechanized fields of the valleys, Tibet's most valuable and unique agricultural treasure is found on its steep mountain slopes. At the very edge of where life can survive, Ophiocordyceps sinensis, commonly known as caterpillar fungus, does not grow from seeds. Instead, it is the extraordinary result of a harsh winter-long interaction between a parasitic fungus and the larvae of ghost moths. As warmer air arrives around May and the seasonal snow begins to melt, the fungus is triggered to emerge from the ground as tiny, dark brown stalks resembling dried twigs. The harvesting season for this Himalayan gold lasts only 4 to 6 weeks before the fungus releases its spores. Once that happens, the caterpillar body beneath begins to deteriorate, causing the fungus to lose much of its commercial value. During this brief harvest window, tens of thousands of nomadic herders spread themselves flat against the cold alpine grasslands. Under intense sunlight and freezing winds, lying close to the ground is the only way to bring their eyes level with the grass, reduce glare, and spot the tiny fungal stalks, often no larger than the tip of a toothpick and nearly identical in color to the surrounding soil. Harvesting caterpillar fungus requires extraordinary precision. Once a specimen is spotted, collectors use a small specialized digging tool to carefully loosen the soil, lifting the entire fungus together with the caterpillar body beneath it, without breaking the fragile connection between the two. Each specimen is then gently cleaned with a soft brush to remove soil before being naturally dried in the shade, helping preserve valuable bioactive compounds such as cordycepin and adenosine. Unlike ordinary agricultural products, most of the caterpillar fungus harvested in Tibet is destined for the luxury market. Although annual production is relatively small, this highly prized medicinal fungus accounts for more than 40% of the annual cash income for many Tibetan nomadic households. Beyond its traditional crops, Tibetan agriculture has expanded into its glacial rivers by raising rainbow trout, a cold water fish native to North America, at some of the highest aquaculture sites in the world. Although rainbow trout is widely farmed across the globe, with countries such as Chile, Norway, and Turkey producing hundreds of thousands of tons each year, the species has found a new paradise in Tibet. Fed by crystal-clear glacial meltwater rich in oxygen and with temperatures that rarely exceed 16 degrees Celsius, the Tibetan Plateau provides ideal conditions for cultivating this premium cold water fish. Descending to valleys below 3,000 meters, rainbow trout are raised in massive floating net cages on hydropower reservoirs, where they benefit from a constant flow of oxygen-rich glacial meltwater. Because the cold temperatures slow the fish's metabolism, it typically takes 2 to 3 years for them to reach market size, significantly longer than in lower altitude farming systems. However, the icy water, combined with a carefully controlled feeding program, allows the fish to develop evenly distributed marbling, producing firm flesh with a vibrant orange-red color and a clean, fresh taste, free of any muddy flavor. After harvest, the trout are immediately bled and transferred into an ice slurry chilling system to rapidly reduce their body temperature, preserving their freshness and quality. They are then transported in refrigerated trucks to processing facilities, where they are filleted, vacuum-packed, and prepared for distribution to the market. Returning to the Rocky Mountain slopes dotted with sparse forests, more than 400,000 Tibetan black pigs are raised in an almost entirely natural environment. With no barns and little human supervision, they roam freely across the mountains, often traveling dozens of kilometers each day. Their agility rivals that of mountain goats, with nimble legs, quick reflexes, and the ability to sprint across steep, rocky terrain to escape predators. Amazingly, despite reaching a market weight of only 30 to 40 kilograms, these pigs are capable of such endurance thanks to their highly developed heart and lungs, along with unique genetic adaptations. These evolutionary traits enable them to use oxygen more efficiently and maintain stamina in the thin air of the high-altitude plateau. Because they are free-ranged year-round, Their diet is entirely natural, consisting of wild grasses, mineral-rich spring water, acorns, and a variety of alpine roots and herbs. This mountain-fed diet gives their meat its distinctive flavor and has earned them a proud local nickname, ginseng pork. Constant movement across rugged mountain terrain, combined with an all-natural diet, gives Tibetan black pork its exceptional culinary quality. The meat is firm yet tender, naturally marbled with fine streaks of fat, offering a rich, buttery flavor without being greasy. It is also prized for its high levels of amino acids and essential trace minerals. Unlike commercially raised pigs, a Tibetan black pig takes more than a year to slowly reach market weight. Harvesting is typically carried out in early winter, when the animals have accumulated the ideal amount of fat. After butchering, the pork is seasoned with salt and local mountain spices before being hung above traditional kitchen fireplaces, where it is slowly smoked over fragrant cypress wood for several months. As a result, the finest Tibetan black pork is rarely found in ordinary markets or supermarkets. Instead, it is often purchased directly from mountain villages by specialty food traders who supply high-end restaurants and customers in major cities with advance orders. Known as the ship of the plateau, the yak is far more than just livestock. It has been the foundation of survival for the Tibetan people for over 7,000 years, long before the ancient trade routes connected this remote highland to the outside world. The Tibetans have a saying, "Wherever there are Tibetans, there are yaks." They are regarded as the people's second lifeline, largely because of their extraordinary biological adaptations, a true masterpiece of evolution. Yaks possess exceptionally large lungs and hearts, a much higher red blood cell density than lowland cattle, and a double-layered coat that allows them to withstand temperatures as low as 40 degrees Celsius. To thrive in such an extreme environment, yak herding follows the seasonal movement of alpine pastures. During summer, as melting snow reveals nutrient-rich grasslands at elevations above 4,500 meters, herders drive their animals to the high mountains to build up energy reserves. When winter arrives, the herds are guided back to lower valleys, where they are better protected from heavy snowstorms and the harshest weather conditions. In late autumn, when yaks have built up their thickest fat reserves, nomadic herders begin harvesting a wide range of yak products. Milking and dairy processing are still carried out largely by hand using traditional methods. Fresh milk is taken back to mountain camps, where it is churned into butter and made into hard cheese that can be stored throughout the long winter. Compared with milk from commercial dairy cattle, yak milk contains significantly higher levels of fat and protein, giving it a naturally rich, creamy flavor without any processing or additives. At the same time, yak meat is cut along the grain, seasoned with salt and local mountain herbs, then hung outdoors to dry naturally in the plateau's strong winds and intense sunshine. Today, the yak industry has entered a new era, thanks to modern logistics and advanced cold chain preservation. Meat, dairy products, and other yak-derived goods are no longer confined to remote nomadic settlements. They have become premium specialty products, sold in major supermarket chains and high-end markets across China's cities. Our first stop is the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region in northern China, where vast grasslands stretch to the horizon and winter temperatures can drop below 30 degrees Celsius, 22 degrees Celsius. These harsh natural conditions, combined with centuries of herding tradition, have made the region one of the world's most renowned producers of cashmere goats, helping China supply around 60 to 70% of the world's raw cashmere. As spring arrives and temperatures begin to rise, the goats naturally shed the fine undercoat they develop throughout the winter. This brief, seasonal window is the only time herders harvest cashmere. Instead of shearing the animals like sheep, they use specially designed combs to gently remove the ultra-soft down growing close to the skin. Each goat produces only about 150 to 250 grams, 5 to 9 ounces of premium quality cashmere fiber per year, meaning it can take the fleece of 4 to 6 goats to produce a single high-quality cashmere sweater. After harvesting, the fiber is transported to a processing facility where it undergoes dehairing, a specialized process that completely separates the fine cashmere down from the coarse, protective outer hairs. It is at this stage that Inner Mongolian cashmere truly stands out. Thanks to the region's extremely cold winters and dry climate, the fibers are typically finer, longer, and more uniform than those produced in many other cashmere growing regions. In addition, a higher proportion of the fiber is naturally white, making it easier to dye and allowing manufacturers to produce exceptionally high-quality yarn. Once selected, the pure cashmere down is thoroughly washed, carded, and spun into fine yarn before being woven or knitted into fabric. The fabric then undergoes softening and finishing treatments to enhance its texture and appearance before being cut and sewn into premium scarves, sweaters, and coats, renowned for their lightweight feel, exceptional softness, and outstanding warmth. Located in the far north of Japan, with a cool climate year-round, summers that rarely exceed 25 degrees Celsius, and vast grasslands rarely seen in a country as compact as Japan, Hokkaido is considered the dairy kingdom of the land of the rising sun. It not only leads in production, but is also regarded as the quality benchmark for Asia's dairy industry. Each year, this region produces more than 3.8 million tons of raw milk, accounting for nearly 50% of Japan's total milk production, an overwhelming figure compared with the rest of the country. Thanks to more than 1 million hectares of agricultural land, dairy farms in Hokkaido are far larger than the Japanese average, where most farming households operate on small plots and face intense land pressure. But wide pastures are not the deciding factor. What truly turns Hokkaido milk into an icon lies in the famous livestock farming philosophy the Japanese call happy cow premium milk. Here, people believe that a happy cow produces milk of exceptional quality. And to create these happy lady cows, every process is controlled almost absolutely. On dairy farms in Hokkaido, calves are cared for like newborn athletes from the very moment they are born. Immediately after birth, each calf is separated into a sterile care area to minimize the risk of bacterial infection. Within the first 24 hours, they must drink antibody-rich colostrum, the vital source of nutrition that determines their lifelong immunity. After that, their diet is calculated precisely down to the gram, combining premium milk replacer, young hay, concentrated feed, and trace minerals. Each day, every calf is fed milk in 2 to 3 fixed sessions, almost perfectly on schedule. Sensors monitor body temperature, growth rate, and feed intake, helping farmers detect any abnormal signs within just a few hours. It takes at least 22 to 24 months for a female calf to mature physically, become pregnant for the first time, and officially enter the milk production cycle. The Japanese do not raise cows to produce milk as quickly as possible. They raise them to become strong, healthy animals capable of delivering high and stable yields for many years. A new day on any dairy farm in Hokkaido begins with cleaning. The cows' resting areas are covered with clean, dry sawdust bedding or sand, which is constantly replaced. Temperature, humidity, and airflow are always controlled by smart ventilation systems. For the Japanese, one of the biggest secrets behind creating happy cow ladies lies in the living environment. It must be clean, dry, quiet, and as stress-free as possible. Because when cows become stressed, rising cortisol levels can clearly reduce both milk quality and milk yield. But if there is one factor that makes Hokkaido milk famous for its deep, creamy richness, clean, sweet aftertaste, and distinctive aroma, it is the diet. The basic menu for cows in Hokkaido includes premium Timothy hay, fermented corn silage, protein-rich alfalfa, and a precisely blended mix of vitamins and minerals. Most of the ingredients have clear origins, with many grown directly in Hokkaido's own fields and harvested at the right stage of nutritional maturity. After that, everything is fed into the TMR system, total mixed ration, where automatic mixers blend the feed evenly so that every bite the cows eat contains the proper nutritional balance. A high-producing cow here eats more than 50 kilograms of feed per day, divided into several meals. Feeding times must be almost perfectly precise. The almost obsessive discipline of the Japanese, seen in every field, is present even in the way they feed cows. And it is also the key that unlocks the top-tier quality of Japanese products. What makes it even more special is that from late spring to early autumn, when the weather is cool and the pastures are at their best, the cows are released onto vast grasslands, almost like a form of mental therapy for these dairy ladies. Many studies in Japan show that cows allowed to graze periodically have more stable milk fat levels and a significantly lower rate of mastitis, a soft secret, yet an extremely important one, behind the distinctive flavor of Hokkaido milk. When it is time for milking, the cows are guided into the milking area by an automatic guiding system. Before milking, the teats must be thoroughly disinfected with a specialized solution to remove dirt and bacteria, reduce the risk of mastitis, and prevent contamination of the first flow of milk. Many large farms use AI-integrated milking robots that can identify each individual cow, clean the teats, attach the milking equipment, and monitor milk quality in real time. Each cow is usually milked 2 to 3 times per day, producing an average of 30 to 40 liters of milk daily, while high-yielding individuals can exceed 50 liters. Immediately after leaving the udder, the milk is cooled down to 4 degrees Celsius within just a few minutes to prevent bacterial growth, then passes through a series of strict inspections before it qualifies to enter the processing line. Compared with the Netherlands, Hokkaido cow's milk is often 1.5 to 2 times more expensive, not to mention premium products such as artisanal cheese, fresh cream, and high-end butter, which are always among the most expensive in Asia, contributing to the nearly $29.6 billion in annual revenue of Japan's dairy industry. That reputation has been built over decades of accumulated technology, near absolute precision, and a philosophy of respecting livestock that few places pursue to the very end. But today, farmer aging, labor shortages, rising feed costs, and post-COVID-19 demand fluctuations are making the standards that once built this dairy kingdom increasingly difficult to maintain. The Wagyu version of pork. That is the name the culinary world has long given to Japanese black pigs, also known as kurobuta. Originating from the Berkshire breed of England and introduced to Japan in the late 19th century, this pig has been selectively bred by the Japanese for more than 100 years to become one of Asia's most premium pork lines, with prices today reaching up to $50 per kilogram, around 5 times more expensive than regular pork. In Kagoshima Prefecture, which accounts for more than 70% of Japan's kurobuta production, around 870,000 pigs are currently raised under strict standards, generating an estimated $420 million in annual revenue for local farmers. To this day, Japanese black pigs still retain the distinctive traits of their Berkshire ancestors, with jet black coats and the famous 6 white points, 6 characteristic white markings on the snout, 4 feet, and tail, giving them a truly unique appearance. But what turns them into a legend lies in the quality of the meat. Fine muscle fibers, evenly distributed intramuscular fat like marble veins, and a higher level of umami-producing amino acids than regular pork, making the meat tender and sweet without feeling greasy. The secret behind this premium pork lies in a slow raising method combined with controlled movement and carefully managed nutrition, passed down by Japanese farmers through generations. While ordinary industrial pigs can be ready for market in just 5 to 6 months, black pigs require nearly twice as long in a comfortable environment, with well-ventilated barns kept at 18 to 23 degrees Celsius and exceptionally clean air. Stocking density is kept below 12 pigs per pen to prevent stress, a silent enemy of meat quality. For at least 60 days before slaughter, the pigs are given more grains and Kagoshima sweet potatoes to enhance the sweetness and glossy texture of the fat. Japanese black pigs are highly active and need light daily movement to keep their muscles firm and their fat evenly distributed. This is also one of the secrets behind the tender, juicy, umami-rich slices of Kurobuta pork. A raw egg can preserve the rich, silky texture of the yolk, its natural sweetness, and the distinctive creamy mouthfeel that a cooked egg does not have. But along with that comes the risk of salmonella, a bacterium that can cause serious food poisoning. That is why, in most countries, health authorities advise against eating raw eggs regularly. But in Japan, things are completely different. Every year, Japanese people consume more than 20 billion eggs, among the highest levels in the world, and it is estimated that nearly half of them are eaten raw in various forms. In fact, tamago kake gohan, rice topped with raw egg, has been a national breakfast dish for millions of Japanese people for generations. So what makes eggs in Japan different from the rest of the world, allowing raw egg consumption to become so normalized? To find the answer, let's begin where this entire industry takes shape, the industrial hatchery. The difference appears from the very first seeds. Eggs used for hatching must come from parent flocks that have been strictly controlled for disease, genetics, and nutrition. They are then further disinfected with UV light or formalin vapor before officially entering the incubator. Modern incubation systems maintain a temperature of around 37.5 degrees, along with extremely stable humidity and oxygen levels, while automatically turning the eggs dozens of times a day so the embryos can develop evenly. After about 21 days, the eggs begin to crack. And if human society once held a preference for sons over daughters in many Eastern cultures, then in the world of the egg industry, the balance is completely reversed. Whether in China, Japan, or any other country, male chicks have almost no value, simply because they cannot lay eggs. All male chicks are culled immediately after birth, and the brief time they see the light inside the hatchery is counted only in seconds. By contrast, all female chicks are health-checked, vaccinated, and automatically sorted before being transferred to rearing farms, where they become biological machines, supplying eggs for Japan's food industry. Compared with many other countries, Japan's industrial chicken farming system is not too different in structure. But to produce eggs that can be eaten raw safely, almost every step is pushed to a far more extreme standard. From the quality of drinking water, feed, and air, to bacterial control inside the barns. At first, the chicks are raised together in high-temperature brooding areas. As their down gradually gives way to full feathers, and their immune systems become more stable, they are moved to rearing houses to prepare for the egg-laying stage. About 5 to 6 months after arriving at the farm, the hens begin laying the first eggs of their lives. A hen can lay almost every day, producing around 300 eggs per year. On farms with hundreds of thousands of hens, daily output can reach millions of eggs, enough to supply an entire city. So how are that many eggs collected? Technology takes care of it. Automatic conveyor systems move the eggs away from the nests just minutes after they are laid, minimizing contact with manure, dust, or bacteria inside the barn. Immediately after leaving the farm, the eggs are transported to a processing facility in specialized refrigerated trucks. Here they go through a series of steps that look more like a semiconductor production line than an ordinary food factory. Washing with warm disinfecting water, drying with clean air, and high-speed LED candling to detect shell cracks, blood spots, or foreign matter inside. Many modern systems also use AI cameras capable of inspecting tens of thousands of eggs per hour. Any eggs that fail to meet the standard are removed immediately. It is this almost obsessive salmonella control process that has helped Japanese eggs become one of the safest types of eggs in the world for raw consumption. In international markets, a tray of premium Japanese eggs can cost several times more than ordinary industrial eggs in China or Southeast Asia. But for Japanese consumers, they are not just buying an egg. They are buying enough peace of mind to crack a raw egg directly over a bowl of hot rice. In restaurants across Japan, it is easy to find bowls of tamago kake gohan made with nothing more than hot rice, soy sauce, and a raw egg freshly cracked into the center. Even when eaten raw, Japanese eggs have almost no strong fishy smell. Instead, they are surprisingly rich, sweet, and smooth. However, for those unfamiliar with the slimy texture of raw egg white, the experience can be a real culture shock. Many people may not know this, but Japan consumes more than 70% of the world's freshwater eel supply, more than any other country on Earth. At one point, the Japanese eel, Anguilla japonica, was even listed as endangered due to decades of heavy consumption and overfishing in Japan. Today, Japan has successfully developed commercial eel farming, but there is one fascinating detail. Most eel juveniles still have to be caught from the wild. The reason is that the reproductive life cycle of this fish remains extremely mysterious. Young eels, known as glass eels, are caught when they are only as thin as noodles and nearly transparent like glass. Yet their price can reach 5,000 to 35,000 USD per kilogram, making them as valuable as white gold during years of shortage. Compared to many other fish species, eel farming is far more difficult because eels are extremely sensitive to water conditions. Temperature, dissolved oxygen, pH levels, and ammonia must all be monitored almost in real time. Even a small fluctuation can cause an entire tank to stop feeding, become stressed, or suffer disease outbreaks. Even feeding is treated like a precise nutritional science. The mixture of fish meal, enzymes, and probiotics is not simply blended together, but activated inside rotating tanks to create a soft, microbe-rich feed before being delivered into the ponds. The moment the feed touches the water, the young eels immediately gather into dense groups, nibbling and circling continuously like a perfectly programmed movement. After around 7 to 8 months, once the eels reach about 200 to 300 grams each, the system switches to automated harvesting. The water level is gradually lowered so the eels gather at one point, then they are guided through smooth pipes directly into the processing area. There, the eels are washed with high-pressure cold water to remove their slippery outer layer, before being rapidly stunned with ice-cold temperatures to preserve the texture of the meat. Next, the eels are filleted in the traditional kanto style from the back, helping keep the body intact for the skewering process. Inside the grilling section, the eels are cooked at around 230 to 250 degrees Celsius to firm up the surface, then dipped into kabayaki sauce, made from soy sauce, mirin, sugar, and dashi. The grilling and sauce dipping cycle is repeated multiple times, creating a glossy brown skin while keeping the meat inside soft and rich, before the final products are packaged under strict hygienic conditions. As the coal industry declined, nearly 2.5 million hectares of land affected by abandoned coal mines remain scattered across the United States. In Pennsylvania, the state with the largest number of abandoned coal mines in the country, more than 100,000 hectares of mine land have become degraded, leaving over 5,000 miles of rivers and streams unable to recover their aquatic ecosystems. This reality stands in stark contrast to the past, when coal was a cornerstone of the nation's energy system, supplying the majority of the electricity that powered the economy and reaching peak production of more than 1 billion tons per year. With the world's largest coal reserves and a vast network of coal-fired power plants spread across the country, the United States built much of its modern industrial economy on this energy source, until natural gas and renewable energy gradually began to reshape the nation's energy landscape. As mines gradually shut down, environmental problems that had long been hidden beneath the surface began to emerge. Groundwater flooded abandoned mine tunnels, reacting with sulfur-bearing minerals to generate acid mine drainage that continuously seeped into rivers and streams. This process carried iron and other dissolved metals, contaminating water supplies used by downstream communities. Meanwhile, soil that had been stripped, disturbed, and heavily compacted during years of mining gradually lost its ability to sustain plant life. As a result, many former mine sites became trapped in a state of degradation that persisted for decades after mining operations had ceased. Everything began to change in 1977, when the United States passed a law requiring coal companies to restore the land after mines were closed. From that point on, areas once regarded as environmental liabilities began a completely new chapter. To transform a coal mine into productive farmland, American engineers must address three major challenges: terrain, soil, and the ecosystem. In areas that have been heavily disturbed by decades of mining, the first step is not planting crops but rebuilding the landscape. Mine pits, waste piles, and unstable slopes are reshaped using bulldozers and heavy excavators to create safe terrain, while drainage systems are redesigned to control stormwater runoff. Without this step, just a few heavy rainstorms can trigger erosion, landslides, and wash away newly added reclamation materials. However, stabilizing the surface solves only half the problem. The greater challenge lies beneath the ground, where the soil is often acidic, nutrient-poor, and so compacted that water struggles to penetrate and roots cannot develop properly. To address this, engineers apply lime to neutralize acidity, add organic matter to mine site. When soil fertility has been restored and vegetation has become well established, do large-scale agricultural activities begin to emerge. In other words, mine reclamation is not simply about turning a barren landscape green again. It is the process of restoring the productive capacity of land that was once considered to have little or no practical value. After years of land restoration, the first thing to appear on many former mine sites is not food crops or orchards, but cattle. The reason is simple. Even after reclamation, many mine lands still contain rock fragments, have low organic matter content, and lack the water-holding capacity of natural agricultural soils. While crops such as corn and soybeans require better soil conditions, forage grasses are far more capable of adapting to harsh environments. Taking advantage of this, engineers often sow large areas with mixtures of forage grasses and legumes such as alfalfa, clover, and orchard grass. Once the pasture becomes sufficiently established, farms begin introducing beef cattle, sheep, and goats for grazing. As a result, lands that are still undergoing restoration can begin generating revenue from meat production, breeding stock, and hay rather than remaining idle for years. Interestingly, in many places, these pastures are not the final destination, but rather a stepping stone to the next stage of development. With each grazing season, grass roots continue to penetrate deeper into the soil, livestock manure is naturally returned to the land, and organic matter steadily accumulates. Over time, the soil becomes increasingly fertile, creating a foundation for higher-value crops and gradually paving the way for large-scale specialized agricultural operations. However, grazing pastures are not a perfect solution for every former mine site. Many areas still have thin topsoil layers and limited water-holding capacity, resulting in significantly lower productivity than natural agricultural land. As a result, overgrazing can compact the soil again, increase erosion, and slow the recovery process. One of the main reasons why many sites remain limited to pasture land instead of progressing to higher-value agricultural uses. If grazing pastures are the first stepping stone, then lavender is one of the most striking examples of how far reclaimed mineland can go. It is almost a match made in heaven between mineland and lavender. Land left behind after surface coal mining is often low in nutrients, but drains water extremely quickly, conditions that closely resemble the Mediterranean environment where this plant originated. In West Virginia, this concept has been brought to life by Appalachian Botanical. On approximately 35 acres of reclaimed coal mine land, the farm has grown more than 70,000 lavender plants, becoming one of the most well-known examples of transforming former mine sites into high-value agricultural land in the United States. However, bringing a plant native to the Mediterranean and growing it in the Appalachian Mountains is no easy task. Before a single lavender plant can be placed in the ground, the first step is propagating cuttings and raising them in specialized nursery trays for several months. This stage helps select the healthiest plants while reducing the risks associated with introducing young seedlings to a mineland environment that can still experience significant fluctuations in moisture and temperature. Once the plants reach the appropriate size, workers use earth augers to drill planting holes at consistent depths and spacing. This is especially important because the soil often contains large amounts of rock fragments and has an uneven structure. But lavender is not a crop that can be harvested immediately. It typically takes 2 to 3 years for the plants to mature and reach commercial production. By early summer, when the fields burst into vibrant shades of purple, the harvest season finally begins. Workers use sickles or specialized pruning shears to cut the flower stems just before full bloom, the stage when essential oil quality is at its peak. Interestingly, many of the people involved in planting, maintaining, and harvesting the lavender are residents of former coal mining communities who were directly affected by the decline of the coal industry and have now found employment opportunities in an entirely new field. After harvesting, the flowers are quickly transported to the processing facility to minimize essential oil loss. There, the bundles are sorted, trimmed, and fed directly into a steam distillation system to extract pure lavender oil. From that point, a wide range of high-value products, including soaps, skin creams, scented candles, and essential oils, are produced, transforming land once torn apart by coal extraction into a source of fragrance, essential oils, and stunning purple fields that attract visitors from far and wide. In addition to tangible agricultural products, reclaimed mine land is also being used to generate a very different kind of output: solar energy. Typically, every megawatt of solar power requires about 2 to 3 hectares of land. But instead of sacrificing productive farmland or converting natural areas, placing solar panels on former mine sites offers a win-win solution. The greatest advantage is the existing infrastructure, from major access roads to substations and transmission lines originally built for coal mining operations. As a result, developers can take advantage of infrastructure that is already in place, rather than building everything from scratch. One notable example is the Starfire project in Kentucky, where one of the largest surface coal mines in the United States is being transformed into an approximately 800 megawatt solar farm, capable of supplying electricity to hundreds of thousands of households. Even more interestingly, many solar farms on reclaimed mine land do more than just generate electricity. Instead of using machinery to control weeds, many projects allow sheep to graze freely between rows of solar panels. The panels create shaded areas that help retain soil moisture, while the grasses and wildflowers growing beneath them attract bees, butterflies, and many other pollinating insects back to the site. In return, this vegetation also helps cool the surrounding environment through evapotranspiration, allowing the solar panels to operate more consistently during hot summer days. Before coal mining began, much of Appalachia was covered by vast forests, So while grazing pastures and lavender fields demonstrate how reclaimed mineland can generate new economic value, commercial forests provide the clearest evidence that the ecosystem itself is truly recovering. However, for decades after reclamation programs began, a paradox emerged. To control erosion, many mine sites were heavily compacted by large machinery and then seeded with fast-growing grasses. This approach stabilized the surface, but it also made it difficult for tree roots to penetrate the soil, while dense grass cover competed aggressively for water and nutrients. As a result, forest recovery progressed much more slowly than expected. The turning point came when scientists introduced the forestry reclamation approach. Instead of compacting the soil, engineers deliberately loosened it through deep ripping to break up hard layers and maintain enough porosity for roots to develop naturally. The goal was not to create a perfectly smooth surface, but to recreate the conditions necessary for a forest to survive and thrive for decades. Once soil conditions improved, reclamation projects began planting high-value native hardwood species, such as red oak, white oak, black walnut, and black cherry. These tree species are widely used in high-end furniture manufacturing, construction, and the production of the bourbon barrels for which the United States is famous. Young trees are typically planted at densities of approximately 1,500 to 2,000 trees per hectare, creating natural competition for sunlight that encourages straighter trunk growth and improves future timber quality. Notably, a real-world finding from the University of Kentucky surprised many forestry professionals. On properly reclaimed mine sites, oak and pine trees sometimes grow 15% to 25% faster than those in nearby natural forests. While this may seem counterintuitive, the deeply loosened soil and reduced competition often allow root systems to establish more aggressively during the early years. Even more remarkably, these isolated mine lands are becoming a refuge for the restoration of the American chestnut, a tree species that once dominated the forests of the eastern United States before being nearly wiped out by a fungal blight during the last century. Solar power was once seen as one of the most promising solutions to the global energy crisis. But as massive solar farms continued to expand, a new question emerged. If valuable farmland is covered with solar panels, where will our food be grown? In 1981, two German scientists proposed the answer: agrivoltaics, a system that allows the same piece of land to generate electricity while continuing to support agricultural production. What began as a bold idea quickly spread around the world. In China, agrivoltaics has been adopted on a massive scale, from deserts and mountain slopes to fish ponds in coastal regions. Instead of serving a single purpose, these once underutilized landscapes are being transformed into highly productive, multi-use systems. As China's solar industry continues to expand at an unprecedented pace, agrivoltaics has grown alongside it. In 2024 alone, the country's installed solar power capacity increased by more than 45%, reaching approximately 890 gigawatts, making agrivoltaics one of the defining trends in the future of modern agriculture. To understand how China turned this idea into real-world dual-use farms, let's begin with the very first step: building the system. Before any solar panels are installed, bulldozers and excavators level the ground, build access roads, and prepare drainage systems to create a stable foundation for the entire project. Engineers then use GPS and laser surveying equipment to precisely mark the location of every support pile. Once the layout is complete, specialized pile driving machines drive galvanized steel piles deep into the ground. Steel beams are then secured with high-strength bolts to form the supporting structure. Next, solar panels weighing nearly 30 kilograms each are mounted onto the frame and carefully aligned at the optimal tilt angle. In single-axis tracking systems, the entire array automatically follows the sun from east to west, increasing electricity generation by 15 to 25% compared to fixed installations. On average, each hectare can accommodate around 1,000 solar panels, producing enough electricity to power a small neighborhood while allowing the land beneath to remain in agricultural use. Once installation is complete, a battery energy storage system, along with inverters and transformers, is connected to store excess electricity and feed power into the national grid. With the solar power system fully operational, the space beneath the panels is finally ready to support a wide variety of agricultural activities. Our first stop takes us to Qinghai, the pioneering region of China's solar sheep model. In 2023 alone, around 13,000 sheep were brought to market here, generating nearly $1.5 million in revenue. It is no coincidence that sheep have become the most widely adopted livestock in agrivoltaics projects. With their gentle nature and habit of grazing only low-growing grass, they serve as natural maintenance crews for massive solar power plants. At first, many farmers were hesitant to let sheep graze beneath solar panels. In practice, however, critical electrical equipment is securely protected, while the spacing between panel rows is carefully designed to give the animals plenty of room to move without affecting the operation of the solar farm. Once safety concerns were addressed, the advantages of the system quickly became clear. In the past, maintaining vegetation across a solar farm covering thousands of hectares could cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars each year in machinery and labor. Today, sheep naturally keep the grass at a safe height, reducing the risk of fire caused by dry vegetation, while turning what was once a maintenance expense into an additional source of income. The sheep benefit as well. The shade cast by the solar panels keeps the ground cooler, retains moisture for longer, and extends the growing season of the grass. With a more reliable food supply and shorter grazing distances than in traditional nomadic herding, the animals stay healthier, achieve higher survival rates, and require less supplemental feed during the dry season. Outside grazing hours, they are still brought back to shelters for additional feed, water, and mineral supplements before being marketed or continuing in wool production. The success of sheep farming has also paved the way for other livestock. Today, goats, geese, and many other farm animals can be found beneath solar arrays across China, transforming power plants into multi-layer agricultural ecosystems where clean energy and livestock production thrive on the same piece of land. Agrivoltaics is not only creating opportunities for familiar livestock, it is also providing a home for one of nature's smallest yet most important workers: honeybees. As urbanization, chemical use, and the loss of wildflower habitats continue to threaten bee populations in China, solar farms planted with wildflowers are becoming new refuges, increasing pollination activity by more than 80%. What makes honeybees such a perfect fit for agrivoltaics is not their size, but the value they create. They collect nectar without interfering with the solar power system or competing for agricultural land, while helping plants reproduce, supporting biodiversity, and generating an additional source of income from the land beneath the solar panels. Running an apiary beneath solar arrays involves much more than electricity. Between the rows of panels, wildflowers and native flowering plants are carefully planted to bloom throughout the seasons, providing a continuous supply of nectar and pollen. Once the flowers begin to bloom, beehives are placed throughout the site, with each colony typically housing between 20,000 and 60,000 bees. From that point on, the space beneath the solar panels is no longer unused land. It becomes a continuously functioning ecosystem. Every day, honeybees travel between the flowering strips to collect nectar, improving pollination, supporting plant growth, and helping suppress excessive weed growth. In turn, this vegetation retains soil moisture, cools the area beneath the panels, and helps the solar system operate more efficiently. After about 3 to 6 months, once the ecosystem beneath the panels has fully matured, the main honey harvest begins. Beekeepers first use a small amount of smoke to calm the colony before opening the hive. They then remove the honey-filled frames, which have been sealed with a thin layer of beeswax. The wax cappings are carefully cut away, allowing the honey to flow freely when the frames are placed into a centrifugal extractor. As the extractor spins, the honey is separated from the comb, collected in a storage tank, filtered to remove wax particles, and left to settle before being bottled. Thanks to the diverse flowering plants, the low disturbance environment, and protection from intense sunlight, the honey often develops a rich color, a more natural flavor, and consistently high quality. The innovation doesn't stop there. In Zhejiang, some farms have even transformed traditional beehives into smart hives by installing miniature solar panels on top of each hive. The electricity generated powers sensors that monitor temperature, humidity, and colony health, allowing beekeepers to manage their hives remotely, even in remote mountainous regions. As one of China's driest regions, with more than 55% of its land affected by desertification, Ningxia has long struggled with scorching heat, sandstorms, and chronic water shortages that made farming extremely challenging. Yet those harsh conditions also made Ningxia the ideal place to test a new approach, building solar power plants on land that was once considered unsuitable for agriculture. The turning point came in 2014, when two major Chinese companies, Huawei and Baofeng, jointly launched an agrivoltaics project cultivating goji berries across approximately 107 square kilometers of desertified land. From that point on, a unique farming system began to take shape. Above, elevated rows of solar panels continuously generate electricity for the local power grid. Below, farmers continue to tend, prune, and harvest goji berries beneath the cooling shade of the solar arrays. When harvest season arrives, farmers move carefully along the rows of goji bushes, selecting only the fully ripened clusters. Each berry is gently picked close to the stem and placed directly into collection trays to minimize bruising during transport. Once the trays are full, the goji berries are taken to collection points beneath the solar panels for an initial inspection before being transported to processing facilities. There, the berries are gently washed using a light water spray system and sorted by size, color, and ripeness to determine the most suitable processing method. Premium quality berries are dried to produce dried goji berries, while the remaining harvest is processed into juice, herbal tea, wine, and a variety of other value-added products. Goji berries have long been a symbol of Ningxia, thriving across its vast semi-desert landscapes. But when combined with solar arrays, this small fruit does more than continue to grow. It helps maximize land use efficiency and economic value, making it one of China's most successful agrivoltaics models. In China, sheep can graze beneath solar panels, and goji berries can thrive in the shade of solar farms. But even more remarkably, the country has extended agrivoltaics onto the water. In Jiangsu, fish ponds are covered with solar arrays, transforming the water's surface into a dual-purpose power plant, where fish are raised below while clean electricity is generated above, producing approximately $18.5 million in net economic value. To make this system work, steel support columns are first driven into the pond bed or installed along the shoreline, raising the solar arrays about 2 to 4 meters above the water. The spacing between panel rows is carefully engineered. Too much shade reduces the sunlight reaching the pond, while panels placed too far apart lower electricity generation efficiency. Once the system is in operation, The most remarkable aspect is that the fish ponds themselves require very little change. Everything continues to function much as before, only in a smarter and more efficient way. The solar panels above block around 20 to 40% of incoming sunlight, preventing the water from heating up too quickly during summer, reducing evaporation, and creating a more stable environment for the fish. At the same time, the electricity generated on site powers aerators, automatic feeders, surveillance cameras, and real-time water quality monitoring systems. When harvest season arrives, farmers use nets or electrically powered winch systems to gather the fish into designated areas. Instead of disturbing the entire pond, they harvest section by section, reducing labor, shortening harvesting time, and minimizing stress on the remaining fish. Thanks to the cooling shade provided by the solar panels, many aquavoltaics projects have reported 10 to 20% higher aquaculture yields than conventional fish ponds, while simultaneously generating clean electricity from the same area of water. Amid the scorching desert, lush, green circular fields stretching more than 1 kilometer in diameter have become a symbol of Saudi Arabia's ambition to transform the desert into a large-scale, food-producing region. These man-made oases are not clustered together, but are scattered across areas that sit above some of the country's largest ancient groundwater aquifers. At the center of each circle is a well drilled hundreds of meters deep, more than a kilometer deep in some locations, penetrating rock formations that have existed for millions of years. From there, water is pumped to a massive mechanized irrigation system that slowly rotates around a fixed pivot point. The system typically takes between 12 and 24 hours to complete a full irrigation cycle, and to withstand the extreme desert heat, it may have to operate almost continuously throughout the growing season. It was here that Saudi Arabia's wheat miracle emerged in the late 20th century, when vast oil revenues enabled the large-scale deployment of thousands of center-pivot irrigation systems. As a result, wheat production increased from virtually nothing to more than 4 million tons per year, transforming Saudi Arabia from a food-importing nation into a self-sufficient producer that even exported wheat to neighboring countries. Farming schedules are carefully planned to maximize the use of available water. Wheat is planted during the winter and harvested in the spring before temperatures rise sharply. During the summer, many farms switch to alfalfa for livestock feed, corn, potatoes, or other crops that are better suited to extreme heat. Because these fields are designed around a fixed irrigation center, each one can be managed as a standardized production unit. GPS-guided tractors, seeders, and harvesters can operate with remarkable precision along each cultivation ring, reducing overlap, minimizing waste, and processing dozens of hectares in a single operation. However, behind this prosperity in the face of an unforgiving climate lies a critical weakness for the entire agricultural sector: how to sustain production while groundwater resources are being extracted at ever greater depths. From a geometric perspective, arranging circular fields side by side leaves up to 21% of the land between them without access to irrigation water. But an even greater challenge lies beneath the surface. Groundwater in these regions naturally contains significant amounts of dissolved minerals, while summer temperatures frequently exceed 110 degrees Celsius. Water evaporates rapidly after irrigation, but the salts remain in the soil. Over time, these salts accumulate, reducing crop yields, degrading soil quality, and eventually rendering entire fields unsuitable for cultivation unless regular leaching is carried out. This problem is far less severe in Egypt, where abundant fresh water from the Nile continuously replenishes the soil and helps flush away accumulated salts. However, desalinating seawater is not a cheap solution. For decades, most of Saudi Arabia's freshwater was produced through thermal desalination, a process that heats seawater to generate steam, which is then condensed into freshwater. This method is highly reliable, but it consumes enormous amounts of energy, effectively requiring the burning of millions of barrels of oil each year. To reduce costs and conserve its oil resources, most modern desalination plants have shifted to a more efficient solution: reverse osmosis technology. Instead of boiling water, the system uses extremely high pressure to force seawater through ultrafine membranes that trap salt and impurities. As a result, the cost of producing fresh water has fallen significantly, helping Saudi Arabia become the world's largest producer of desalinated water. Yet the fundamental challenge remains unchanged. Water may be more abundant, but if all of the water used for agriculture comes from desalination plants, production costs rise rapidly, making many staple food crops difficult to compete economically. For this reason, Saudi Arabia began pursuing a more ambitious goal: maximizing agricultural output from every cubic meter of water used. And that is precisely why high-tech greenhouse complexes are gradually becoming the center of modern Saudi agriculture. In North America and Europe, greenhouses are primarily used to protect crops from harsh winter weather and extend the growing season. In Saudi Arabia, however, their purpose is almost the exact opposite: keeping crops cool while using as little water as possible. Today, thousands of hectares of modern greenhouses can be found across the country, particularly around Riyadh and the major agricultural regions of central Saudi Arabia. Inside these facilities, large exhaust fans continuously remove hot air while evaporative cooling pads help lower temperatures. As a result, conditions inside the greenhouse are typically maintained at around 72 to 77 degrees Celsius, creating an environment where high-value crops such as tomatoes, cucumbers, and sweet peppers can be grown year-round, rather during a single season. Water is delivered directly to the root zone through drip irrigation systems, ensuring that every liter of water, Saudi Arabia's most precious resource, is used as efficiently as possible. This is especially important because fruits and vegetables, while essential to the diet, require large amounts of water to produce. For decades, Saudi Arabia relied heavily on imports to meet much of its demand for fresh produce. Today, however, a growing share of that supply is being produced domestically, instead of being shipped thousands of kilometers from Europe, Turkey, or neighboring Mediterranean countries. A greenhouse tomato plant typically takes about 3 to 4 months to produce its first harvest and continue bearing fruit for many months afterward. Once the tomatoes reach the desired size and ripeness, they are carefully picked, sorted, and packed by hand before being transported to distribution centers across the country. For Saudi consumers, this locally grown produce is often fresher than imported alternatives. Rather than spending days or even weeks traveling across international supply chains, it can be harvested and delivered to market within a much shorter period of time, even when it is grown in the middle of the desert. Thousands of years before the first oil field was discovered, there was one crop that enabled people to survive in the harsh Arabian desert: the date palm. Today, more than 30 million date palm trees are still cultivated across Saudi Arabia, producing over 1.6 million tons of dates annually and placing the country among the world's largest date producers. The heart of this industry lies in Al Qasim, the largest date-growing region in Saudi Arabia. Here, a date palm can take between 5 and 8 years before it begins producing significant yields, but once established, it can continue bearing fruit for decades. From August to October each year, the harvest season transforms these farms into non-stop operations. Date clusters weighing tens of kilograms are cut down from heights of more than 10 meters using specialized lifting equipment or by workers who climb directly up the trunks. Although Saudi Arabia ranks among the wealthiest countries in the world by per capita income, Most of this work is still carried out by migrant laborers from South Asia and East Africa, the workforce that powers much of the Gulf region's agricultural sector. After harvest, thousands of tons of dates are transported to Barren, home to the largest date market in the world. During the peak season, long lines of trucks loaded with produce arrive continuously from across the country. The dates are sold through public auctions before moving on to modern processing facilities where they are cleaned, graded, packaged, and prepared for export. From the oases that once helped people survive in the desert, Saudi dates can now be found on supermarket shelves across the Middle East, Europe, North America, and Southeast Asia. Demand rises especially sharply during Ramadan, a period that can account for nearly 1/3 of annual sales, when hundreds of millions of Muslims around the world use dates to break their daily fast, continuing a tradition that has endured for more than a millennium. Alongside its ancient date palms, the Saudi desert is also nurturing a fruit tree that seems unlikely to survive in such an arid environment: the orange tree. Few people would expect to find orange-growing regions spanning thousands of hectares in the middle of Saudi Arabia's deserts. At Alpaca Farm and in key agricultural regions across central Saudi Arabia, such as Al-Kharj, growers cultivate more than 5 million sweet orange trees, producing over 150,000 tons of oranges each year. For an orange tree, a crop that naturally requires significant amounts of water, to produce juicy fruit in the middle of the desert, Saudi farmers must solve their greatest challenge: providing enough water without losing precious drops to the hot, dry air. Irrigation water is drawn from geological formations hundreds of meters below the surface and delivered directly to the root zone through drip irrigation systems, minimizing evaporation as much as possible. When the harvest season begins, typically running from November through March, farms race against time to pick the fruit entirely by hand in order to prevent damage to the delicate skin. Because desert temperatures rise rapidly after sunrise, workers often begin as early as 4 a.m., carefully clipping each orange from the tree and placing it into containers before the fruit is loaded onto refrigerated trucks that travel through the night. Saudi oranges also possess a fascinating biological characteristic. Thanks to intense year-round sunlight and the large temperature differences between day and night, the trees tend to accumulate higher levels of natural sugars in their fruit. As a result, many orange varieties grown in Al Jaf are known for their rich sweetness and high juice content, despite being cultivated in one of the driest regions on Earth. Even more interestingly, these temperature fluctuations create a unique phenomenon. For the peel to develop its bright orange color, the trees must experience winter nights below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Otherwise, the fruit may remain green on the outside, even though the flesh inside is fully ripe. The success of these orange groves in the sand has not only enabled Saudi Arabia to meet nearly 50% of domestic demand during the harvest season, but has also demonstrated that crops traditionally associated with Mediterranean climates can be grown commercially in the desert when sufficient technology and water resources are available. Once believed to be a food of the gods, mochi has remained at the heart of Japanese traditions for over 1,000 years, playing an essential role in sacred rituals and New Year celebrations. Yet this simple glutinous rice cake has long since journeyed beyond temples and festivals, evolving into a global culinary icon and driving a market valued at nearly $400 million. The journey to making Japan's famously soft and chewy mochi begins in the rice fields of Niigata, home to mochi gome, a special variety of glutinous rice rich in amylopectin. This unique starch gives the steamed rice its signature stickiness and remarkable elasticity, making it the ideal ingredient for mochi. About a month after the seedlings are first cultivated, they are transplanted into the paddies. In traditional farming villages, farmers still use a wooden planting guide known as the tawe jogi to keep each row perfectly aligned. On modern farms, however, automated rice transplanters ensure consistent spacing and planting depth with far greater efficiency. As the lush green paddies gradually turn a brilliant golden yellow, the harvest season begins. Unlike wheat harvesters designed for dry fields, Japan's rice harvesters are specially engineered to operate in soft, waterlogged paddies. Wide tracks or flotation wheels, automatic leveling systems, and stable cutting and threshing mechanisms allow the machines to work efficiently, even when water reaches halfway up the wheels. Within seconds, the rice grains are separated from the straw and transferred into sealed storage tanks to minimize moisture exposure. From the rice fields, the mochigome is transported to processing facilities, where it is milled, cleaned, and prepared as the glutinous rice used to make mochi. First, the rice is thoroughly washed and then steamed until each grain becomes soft, while retaining its signature stickiness and elasticity. Next, while the rice is still piping hot, it is immediately transferred into a mortar, where the first stage of pounding begins. Using slow, heavy strikes with a wooden mallet, the craftsman gradually breaks down the grain structure, compressing the loose cooked rice into a single dense, cohesive mass. Once the rice has formed a cohesive mass, the fine pounding stage begins. The rhythm of the mallet becomes faster and more consistent, while an assistant continuously folds, turns, and moistens the dough between every strike. This prevents the mochi from sticking to the mortar, keeps its surface from drying out, and ensures a smooth, uniformly elastic texture. More like a dangerous performance than a cooking process, this tightly synchronized rhythm allows the mochi to be kneaded, stretched, and compressed in a way that is difficult for machines to fully replicate. Throughout the process, the team shouts "yoisho" to coordinate every movement, maintain safety, and transform this traditional craft into a display of remarkable precision and teamwork. Today, many workshops use high-capacity pounding machines to produce smooth, elastic mochi dough more quickly and consistently. Even so, handmade mochi remains highly prized, as many Japanese believe that no machine can fully replicate the craftsman's rhythm, the warmth of freshly pounded rice, or the delicate touch of human hands. Whether made by hand or by machine, the finished mochi dough is fed into a portioning machine where it is cut into uniform pieces before being rolled into balls. Each piece is then coated with soybean flour or starch to prevent sticking and filled with a variety of ingredients, ranging from traditional sweet red bean paste to strawberries, mangoes, or fresh cream. Ironically, the same chewy texture that makes mochi so beloved also makes it a choking hazard. Every year in Japan, hundreds of choking incidents are linked to mochi, particularly among older adults during the New Year holiday. Leaving behind the land of chewy mochi, we arrive in Kyoto, where rice is no longer pounded into cakes but awakened by koji, the centuries-old mold that gives life to sake, Japan's national drink. Unlike mochigome, sake is made from sakamai, a special rice variety with large grains, a thick starchy core, and fewer impurities. After harvest, the rice is polished for hours to remove the bran, proteins, and fats. For premium's sake, more than 70% of each grain may be milled away, leaving only the pure white core for the fermentation process. After polishing, the rice is placed into large cloth bags and repeatedly washed in cold water to remove any remaining bran powder from the surface. It is then soaked for a precisely controlled amount of time, as absorbing even slightly too much or too little water can prevent the grains from developing the ideal structure for fermentation. Once the rice has absorbed the right amount of moisture, it is steamed at nearly 100 degrees, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, for 40 to 60 minutes. The goal is not to cook it into soft rice, but to produce grains with a dry surface, a moist interior, and a firm texture that can withstand the fermentation process without breaking apart. Immediately afterward, the hot steamed rice is transferred to a specialized cooling system, where a continuous flow of air lowers the temperature evenly across every grain. Once it reaches around 35 to 40, 95 to 140, workers sprinkle Aspergillus oryzae spores over the rice and gently mix it to ensure the mold coats each grain evenly. This is the creation of koji, the soul of sake, and a fermentation technique that dates back more than 1,200 years to Japan's Nara period. Before the Japanese mastered koji cultivation, sake was once made by chewing rice and spitting it into large vessels, allowing enzymes in human saliva to convert starch into sugar. Today, that unusual practice has been replaced by a carefully controlled microbial process carried out inside the muro, the traditional koji cultivation room. Here, the rice is covered with cloth and incubated for 48 to 72 hours, allowing microscopic mold filaments to grow deep into each grain. As they spread, they form the rice's signature white coating, while releasing enzymes that break down starch into fermentable sugars. Once the koji is fully developed, it is combined with steamed rice, water, and sake yeast to create the yeast starter, moto. Over the next 2 to 4 weeks, the yeast multiplies to a concentration of hundreds of millions of cells per milliliter. After the starter becomes stable, it is transferred to the Moromi fermentation tank, where additional steamed rice, koji, and water are added in 3 separate stages over 4 days. Unlike Russian vodka, which relies primarily on distillation, or French wine, which depends on the natural sugars found in grapes, Japanese sake is unique because 2 processes occur simultaneously inside the same tank. Koji continuously converts rice starch into sugar, while yeast immediately transforms that sugar into alcohol. This multiple parallel fermentation is the secret behind sake's remarkable depth of flavor, clean finish, and naturally high alcohol content. After several weeks, the main mash is pressed to separate the young sake from the spent rice solids. The freshly extracted sake is then filtered, gently pasteurized, and aged to soften its sharpness, while allowing its complex aromas and flavors to mature before bottling. For the Japanese, sake is far more than an alcoholic beverage. It is a symbol of festivals, sacred rituals, and family gatherings, carrying more than 1,000 years of tradition in every drop. Fueled by the popularity of Starbucks, TikTok, and modern beverage chains, matcha has grown into a multi-billion-dollar industry, expanding by nearly 10% each year and becoming one of the fastest-growing drinks in the world. Yet few people realize that long before it appeared in lattes and desserts, matcha first arrived in Japan through Buddhist temples, passed through the hands of samurai, and evolved into one of the country's most refined cultural symbols. To understand why Japanese matcha has become the world's most sought-after green tea, we need to travel to the tea-growing mountains of Aichi, where the Japanese begin shaping its flavor long before the leaves ever reach a factory. Instead of waiting until processing begins, they carefully influence the tea while every leaf is still growing on the plant. Unlike most crops that thrive under full sunlight, Japanese tea growers do the exact opposite. Around April, they cover the tea plants with dark shade cloths that block up to 90% of the sunlight. This artificial shade stimulates the leaves to produce more chlorophyll and accumulate higher levels of L-theanine, giving matcha its deep emerald color, naturally sweet umami flavor, and rich, lingering finish that sun-grown tea simply cannot match. After 3 to 4 weeks of shading, the real selection process begins. For ceremonial-grade matcha, workers do not harvest the entire tea bush. Instead, they carefully pick only the top 2 or 3 young leaves, where the foliage is the most tender, least fibrous, and richest in flavor. By contrast, many lower-grade matcha products are harvested using mechanical cutters that move across the tops of the tea rows. High-speed blades, combined with suction systems or conveyor belts, collect large volumes of leaves at once. While this method is faster and far more economical for mass production, it often gathers older leaves, stems, and tougher fibers as well, resulting in a powder that is less silky, more bitter, and lighter in color than matcha made from carefully hand-selected leaves. Immediately after harvesting, the tea leaves must be transported to the processing facility as quickly as possible to preserve their freshness before oxidation begins to dull their vibrant color and delicate aroma. Once at the factory, the leaves are spread into thin layers, gently cooled, and then steamed for 20 to 40 seconds. This brief steaming process halts oxidation, locking in the leaves' vivid green color while reducing their natural bitterness. Next, unlike most green teas that are rolled into tight curls, matcha leaves are dried flat at temperatures as of around 80 to 100 degrees Celsius. The goal is not to create an attractive shape, but to preserve the integrity of the leaf for the grinding stage. By keeping the leaves flat, they retain the ideal structure needed to produce the exceptionally fine powder that defines authentic matcha. Once the stems and leaf veins have been almost completely removed, only the pure leaf flesh remains. It is then slowly ground using granite stone mills, rotating at just 30 to 60 revolutions per minute. A single stone mill produces only 30 to 40 grams of matcha per hour, but this slow grinding process minimizes heat buildup, helping preserve the powder's vibrant green color, delicate aroma, and signature ultrafine texture. After the powder reaches a perfectly uniform consistency, it is sealed in airtight packaging to protect it from light, oxygen, and moisture. In Japan, however, matcha is far more than just a beverage. It embodies the spirit of the Japanese tea ceremony. The Japanese believe that every tea gathering is a once-in-a-lifetime moment, so every movement from preparing the tea to drinking it is performed slowly, mindfully, and with complete presence. Few people know that during Japan's Edo period, wasabi was a rare and closely guarded delicacy, reserved exclusively for feudal lords, and served only at the most prestigious banquets. More than 400 years later, it has become a global symbol of sushi, driving a market worth nearly $500 million. So what made wasabi so highly prized? The answer lies in its one-of-a-kind pungency. Unlike chili peppers that burn the tongue, wasabi sends a sharp, aromatic heat straight up the nose, awakening every sense within seconds. To discover how the Japanese create this refined yet intensely powerful flavor, let's travel to Shizuoka Prefecture, where crystal-clear mountain streams have nurtured wasabi for centuries. Often regarded as one of the most difficult crops in the world to cultivate, wasabi embodies the Japanese pursuit of perfection. While many plants can thrive in fertile soil, wasabi will only grow in cold, crystal-clear water with temperatures that remain remarkably stable throughout the year. In Shizuoka, the water that nourishes the plants has spent years filtering through layers of rock before reaching the roots. Before planting can even begin, farmers must build a specialized riverbed beneath the flowing water. Large stones are laid at the bottom to guide the current, while multiple layers of gravel above allow water and oxygen to circulate freely around the roots. Only after this carefully engineered bed is stable are the young wasabi seedlings transplanted by hand at precise intervals. When harvest season arrives, farmers wade into the icy water to gently lift each rhizome from the gravel, taking great care not to damage the plant's delicate structure. Immediately after harvesting, the wasabi is carefully washed, trimmed, and prepared for processing. Unlike industrial condiments, real wasabi is not pre-ground. Instead, it is traditionally grated just moments before serving to release its signature pungent aroma and fresh, complex flavor. This unique characteristic makes authentic wasabi extremely difficult to commercialize. Not only is it challenging to cultivate, with low yields and high production costs, but its flavor also fades quickly after processing. As a result, the food industry developed a substitute made from horseradish, mustard, and green food coloring, meaning that more than 90% of the wasabi served around the world is actually an imitation designed to replicate the original taste. Even so, genuine wasabi remains irreplaceable in Japanese cuisine, a once closely guarded secret that has evolved into a global culinary icon. When it comes to summer, few fruits are more iconic than the watermelon. With its distinctive green rind and juicy red flesh, it is a staple on the tables of billions of people every year. More than 100 million tons of watermelons are harvested worldwide annually, making it one of the most popular fruits on the planet. As harvest season begins, watermelon fields spanning dozens or even hundreds of hectares come to life with activity. Farmers carefully inspect each fruit for ripeness by checking the color of the ground spot, the dryness of the stem, and the sound produced when the rind is gently tapped. Once a watermelon reaches its ideal maturity, it is cut from the vine using specialized knives and quickly gathered into long rows across the field. On many large-scale farms, thousands of watermelons are continuously passed from harvest workers onto conveyor belts or specialized transport vehicles. They are then taken to sorting facilities, where the fruits are graded according to size, weight, and quality, before being packed for shipment to supermarkets, processing plants, or export markets around the world. In addition to traditional watermelons weighing between 5 and 15 kilograms, modern agriculture has developed a wide range of varieties with remarkably different characteristics. Mini watermelons, which typically weigh just 1 to 3 kilograms, are known for their crisp texture, concentrated sweetness, and few seeds. Their compact size has made them especially popular in large cities, where they are ideal for smaller households. At the other end of the spectrum are specially bred giant watermelons that can exceed 100 kilograms in weight. While they are generally not as intensely sweet as smaller varieties, they stand out for their enormous size and abundant flesh. These giants are often featured in agricultural competitions and special exhibitions. Some record-breaking specimens have even surpassed 150 kilograms, making them heavier than an average adult. From miniature watermelons that are just the right size for a small family, to giant fruits weighing more than an adult person, they all begin their journey in the sun-drenched fields of summer, where the harvest of millions of tons of watermelons continues to take place across the globe every year. If watermelon is a symbol of hot summer days, then cherries are widely regarded as one of the fruits that signal the true beginning of summer in many temperate countries. Each year, the world produces more than 2.5 million tons of cherries, most of which are harvested within a very short window, just a few weeks to a few months, when the fruit reaches perfect ripeness. In large-scale cherry-growing regions, especially orchards dedicated to processing, harvesting is often carried out using massive shaking machines. As the machine moves along the rows of trees, it grips the trunk or main branches and generates carefully calibrated vibrations. Within just a few seconds, thousands of ripe cherries fall simultaneously onto tarps or collection conveyor systems placed beneath the trees. Thanks to mechanization, a single machine can harvest an amount of cherry products. After the harvest season, many cherry-growing regions host unique festivals, such as cherry pie eating contests and cherry pit spitting competitions. While they may sound unusual, these activities were created to celebrate the abundance of the harvest, promote local products, and attract tourists to cherry-producing areas. Among them, the cherry pit spitting competition has become a well-known tradition. After eating the fruit, participants try to spit the pit as far as possible, creating competitions that are both entertaining and surprisingly competitive. Each time summer arrives, vast peach orchards stretching across hundreds of hectares simultaneously shift into a vibrant golden-orange hue, signaling the beginning of one of the most important harvest seasons of the year. With an annual production of over 25 million tons, peaches are now among the most widely consumed fruits in the world and a familiar symbol of summer in many countries. When they reach perfect ripeness, the flesh becomes softer, sugar levels rise significantly, and a rich aroma begins to spread throughout the orchards. This is also the moment when thousands of workers enter their busiest season of the year. Each peach is carefully picked by hand, gently twisted off the branch to avoid damaging its delicate outer skin. On large-scale farms, workers continuously move between rows of heavily laden trees, harvesting thousands of tons of peaches within just a few short weeks. Some giant peach varieties can even weigh over 500 grams per fruit, making both harvesting and transportation far more demanding and requiring extra care. After being picked, the peaches are collected into large containers before being transferred onto specialized trays for sorting, packaging, and shipment to supermarkets around the world. In addition to traditional peach varieties, donut peaches, also known as flat peaches, are among the most distinctive types today. Instead of the familiar round shape, this variety has a flattened form with a sunken center, resembling a donut. Believed to have originated in China centuries ago, donut peaches are well known for their small pit, thick flesh, and a much sweeter taste compared to many standard peach varieties. Thanks to their low acidity, they offer a mild, fragrant flavor that makes them especially appealing to consumers. This unique shape, combined with superior taste quality, has made donut peaches one of the most valuable peach varieties during the summer season. Carrying its distinctive aroma and refreshing sweet tart flavor, passion fruit has long been one of the defining tastes of summer in many tropical countries. Every year, millions of tons of passion fruit are harvested to serve the global beverage, food, and processing industries. Before developing into plump, ripe fruits, the passion fruit vine produces some of the most unique flowers in the plant kingdom. With their multi-layered, symmetrical structure and intricate spirals of purple, white, and green filaments, passion fruit flowers resemble works of art more than ordinary blossoms. When harvest season arrives, the lush green passion fruit vines are quickly covered with thousands of ripening fruits. Unlike many crops that must be picked while still unripe, passion fruit is typically harvested only after it has fully matured. On many farms, workers walk along the trellised rows, collecting fruits that have naturally fallen to the ground or gently picking those that have reached the standard color and ripeness. The fruit is then taken to sorting facilities, where it is graded by size and quality before being packed and shipped to market. From sun-drenched vines to modern processing plants, passion fruit continues its journey into countless juices, fruit teas, and desserts around the world. Its rich tropical aroma has made this small fruit one of the most recognizable and beloved flavor symbols of summer. Golden, like the light of a summer sun, and bursting with rich tropical sweetness, pineapple has long been one of the most beloved fruits during hot weather. Behind every single pineapple lies a challenging harvest journey across fields covered in sharp, spiky leaves. When harvest season begins, vast pineapple plantations quickly become bustling with activity. After about 12 to 18 months of growth, each fruit is carefully checked for ripeness based on its skin color, sugar content, and distinctive aroma. Since pineapple plants grow close to the ground and are surrounded by long, sharp-edged leaves, harvesting requires workers to wear protective gloves, boots, and thick clothing for safety. Moving through dense rows of plants under the scorching summer sun, workers use specialized knives to cut the stem just below each fruit, carefully preserving the distinctive crown of leaves on top. The harvested pineapples are then placed onto carts or mobile conveyor belts, running along the fields before being collected into large containers. On large-scale farms, thousands of pineapples can be harvested in a single day to ensure they reach consumers at peak quality. Few people know that pineapple also has a fascinating miniature version that is increasingly popular in many markets. About 1/3 the size of a regular pineapple, mini pineapples are known for their softer core, richer sweetness, and more concentrated aroma. Thanks to their compact size, they are often enjoyed as a convenient, ready-to-eat summer fruit. Beyond that, pineapple is also a star ingredient at many outdoor barbecue gatherings. When grilled over charcoal, its natural sugars caramelize, creating an irresistible aroma and an even deeper sweetness. From refreshing glasses of juice to golden grilled slices, this tropical fruit has become one of the most iconic flavors of summer. There is a fruit that, just by looking at it, is enough to evoke the feeling of summer. From tropical beaches and refreshing glasses of coconut water to rows of palm trees swaying in the breeze, coconut has become one of the most recognizable symbols of hot, sunny days. When harvest season begins, heavy coconut clusters weighing dozens of kilograms appear densely across palm canopies that rise 15 to 30 meters high. In many plantations, workers climb straight up the trunks, using harnesses or specialized climbing equipment, carrying sharp machetes to reach each coconut bunch. Once they reach the top, they use the blades to cut down clusters that can weigh tens of kilograms each. Instead of being lowered with complex machinery, in many riverside coconut growing regions, the harvested coconuts are simply dropped into irrigation canals that run through the plantations. Thanks to their thick, fibrous husks, which allow them to float, hundreds of coconuts can be easily collected and transported by boats or small barges to collection points. Amid the lush green rows of coconut palms, the sight of coconuts drifting slowly along the waterways has become an iconic image of harvest season in tropical regions. Alongside lush green coconut groves, many tropical rural regions also preserve fascinating stories about coconut-picking monkeys. With their natural climbing ability and long-standing relationship with local farmers, they have become a familiar sight in the daily life of many coconut-growing communities. More than just an agricultural practice, this is also a cultural element that reflects the close bond between humans and nature across generations.